Episode number 576 Talon's Death. All emotions began to fade from the eyes of the Scarlet King, and the sense of brutality and determination in them made the heart of Talon and the rest of the members of the Umbra clan freeze. Some of the Umbra clan's warriors could not help but take a step back, and it was clear they were not ready to face the Scarlet King.
If he leaves this place alive, it would not be only you, but your entire clan that would face extermination. Eon Volcano is not someone who has tolerance for traitors.
The Soul King noticed the dread and fear in the members of the Umbra clan, so he made it clear what would happen if they failed. Although the fear of death was great, the fear of their families being slaughtered was even greater. Talon and the rest of the members of the Umbra clan clenched their teeth and transformed all that fear into rage as they prepared to fight Cain. The members of the Kraken clan were under the control of the Soul King, so there was no need for words for them as they would fight with their lives on the line. The Soul King's eyes burst with soul force as he prepared to command all the warriors and do everything in his power to kill the young man here, and now since if he were to lose this chance, there was no doubt in his mind that this monster would chase him across ether. Although it was extremely shameful for the Soul King to be afraid of a young man around 20 years old, there was nothing he could do about it. Samuel and Law saw that the battle was about to start, and they looked at each other. Even if they were wounded, they could not simply leave Cain to fight alone and were about to lead the warriors of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan when they heard the Godslayer human's voice in their minds. "Stay there. You will only be a hindrance." The duo could only sigh and show a complicated smile as they heard Cain's words and accepted the fact they were not in any condition to help him, remaining silent as they focused on the majestic battle that was about to happen. Cain's eyes were emotionless as dark golden and bright golden flames burst from his body. The evolution of his paths of power had improved the strength of his willpower, allowing him to trigger both radiance of strength and radiance of life at the same time without a problem. Cain's vitality and strength burst due to the power of his alter ego. Still, he was far from finished as his veins began to glow with the power of the astral blood ability, pushing his physical strength and defenses to an even higher level.
Thumpy.
If that wasn't enough, Cain triggered Usuraform, with his heartbeat beating so fast and with such power that it drowned out every other sound inside the root. Blood wings emerged from his back, now adopting a solidified structure as the power of natural energy enhanced their speed and resilience, allowing them to act as shields. Talon and the rest of the warriors of the Umbra clan could not help but clench their fists as they saw the amazing amount of power emanating from Cain's body. Then, it happened. Cain's ego wave burst as the concept of sundering enveloped every part of his body, and he then stomped the ground with all his strength.
BOOOMMMs.
It was a simple kick to the ground, but its power was so immense that it felt akin to a small nuclear explosion, raising a cloud of white dust that shrouded Cain's figure.
Focus on the ground.
The Soul King shouted, raising the awareness of the warriors of the Kraken clan and Umbra clan. The Dark King remembered very clearly how Cain was able to rise from the ground without any of them noticing his presence and attack, and this time he would be alert. All of them unleashed their ego wave, using their force field to cover the ground beneath their feet so that they could catch Cain. The Soul King's strategy was sound, but they were looking in the wrong direction. It was true that Cain could flawlessly merge with the ground thanks to earth attunement, but that was not the only art he learned. Just as the Soul King focused his entire attention on the ground, his eyes narrowed as he felt a powerful gale descending from the ceiling. Looking up, his eyes widened upon seeing Cain flashing down with overwhelming momentum, making him resemble a blood comet with a golden caw. By using air assimilation, Cain was able to eliminate the barrier between him and the air, allowing his body to hide in it until it was time to strike, and he did it in the form of a dive as the power of space and blood energy revolved around him. Cain had used his entire body to trigger the blood-space vortex, transforming himself into a blood meteorite crashing into the enemy forces. The target of the attack was once again the Umbra clan, specifically Talon. The leader of the Umbra clan's younger generation saw the blood meteorite falling toward him, and a sense of utter hopelessness assaulted him as there was no way to dodge it. In a desperate attempt, Talon screamed as he channeled all his energy into his metallic fins, trying to face the blood meteorite in the form of a shadow tornado. Unfortunately for Talon, he was weaker than Robert, and Cain had channeled all his strength into this attack, which combined the might of his physical body and the power of his spells.
BOOMMMMMMs.
An explosion echoed inside the root as the blood meteorite shattered the shadow tornado before ripping Talon to pieces and crashing into the ground, generating a blast that once again sent the warriors of the Umbra clan flying away while puking blood. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 577, Robert's Death, I.
Damn it.
The Soul King couldn't help but shout as the soul force in his eyes destabilized, his emotions affected by the willpower of his battle vessels. Talon, one of the strongest warriors at his disposal, had just died as the battle began. However, his thousands of years of experience allowed the Soul King to maintain enough control to command the 7 warriors of the Kraken clan, and they all marched toward Cain full of suicidal killing intent. Cain's eyes glowed with golden light as he saw the warriors of the Kraken clan charging toward him, and the power of the flow showed him every single move they would make. 4 astral cultivators and 3 essence cultivators. He didn't simply wait for the members of the Kraken clan to arrive as he flashed forward, meeting the enemies head-on, immediately appearing before the astral cultivators. Robert was leading the melee side of the fosse, and as he saw Cain appear before him, he swung his massive hammer while at the same time, 2 other astral cultivators attacked from the right and left with a sword and blade. The last one had jumped to the ceiling and dived toward Cain with a spear aimed at his head. Attacks were coming from all directions, but Cain didn't pull back. His focus reached its zenith as he used the flow to counter Robert's hammer strike, dodging the hammer and sending a Sunforce fist directly to the man's head before the weapon could touch the ground. Cain's Sunforce fist was immensely powerful, and combined with Robert's momentum, it was no wonder the warrior from the Kraken clan was sent flying away with the sound of broken bones echoing across the route. That would have shocked the heart of the members of the Kraken clan, but right now they were nothing more than puppets under the control of the Soul King, so they ignored Robert's wounds and carried on with their attacks with suicidal zeal. Cain saw the blade and sword coming at him, but he simply raised both arms, and the next second the sound of metal striking something hard was heard by all. The sword and blade had managed to pierce through the sun armor, but they were only able to make a small cut on Cain's skin, proving just how immensely powerful his defenses were once he combined astral blood ability with natural energy. Unfortunately, while he managed to neutralize the blade and sword, Cain still had to face the member of the Kraken clan diving toward him with a spear aimed at his head. Just as the spear was about to reach its target, Cain's eyes glowed with burning golden light and he triggered Sun Eyes, allowing beams of concentrated Sunforce to land on the spear wielder's chest, blasting this one into the ceiling with a hole in her chest. The Soul King saw another of his warriors perish, but he managed to maintain calm. He already expected that person to die, and the goal was to simply hinder Cain's movement enough for the next attack. Cain had just taken care of the woman and was regaining his sight when he saw 3 typhoons flashing toward him from the left, center, and right. The 3 essence cultivators from the Kraken clan had been charging their spells, and now they shot them at Cain with overwhelming power, as each of the typhoons had a force that surpassed the limits of the apotheosis realm. With that shout, Cain made his astral wave explode, allowing him to push away the blade and sword, regaining control over his arms again. However, the typhoons were too close, and he wouldn't be able to dodge them, but that was not a problem. The essence wave in his hands began to vibrate at a unique frequency that matched that of the typhoons on the right and left. He used the energy redirection ability of the flow to change the course of both typhoons, sending them crashing into the Kraken clan's warriors on his right and left.
BOOMMMs. Boomers. BOOMMs.
3 explosions occurred. 2 of them landed point-blank on the Kraken clan's warriors with the sword and blade, and the last one on Cain's chest, all of them being sent flying away. Cain was embedded in one of the walls, and blood emerged from the corner of his mouth, but beneath his red mask, a bloody smile appeared as the damage he received from that strike was far from being able to weaken his battle power, and radiance of life healed his wounds at a speed visible to the eyes. It was not just his offensive power that surpassed the limits of the early Divine Ascension rank. On the other hand, the Kraken clan members with the sword and blade who took the other two typhoons could barely rise from the ground, and it was clear they had suffered horrible internal damage. The only reason they could still fight was the Soul King forcing their bodies to keep fighting despite the damage. After forcing the Kraken warriors to rise, the Soul King clenched his teeth with frustration as he saw Cain rising from the wall as if nothing had happened and flashed back into the fray, making it clear that it would take more than a lucky strike to take the man down. The broadsword appeared in his right hand as he made his astral wave burst, ignoring the damage of the battle vessel.
Fight!
The voice of the Soul King echoed inside the mind of the terrified warriors of the Umbra clan, erasing their fear and putting them into a frenzy as they ignored their wounds and flashed toward Cain along with the warriors of the Kraken clan. Robert and the other two astral cultivators of the Kraken clan were at the lead of the fosse, but it was clear they were at their last legs, and it would not take long for the damage inside their bodies to reach the point where they would not be able to move, even under the control of the Soul King. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 578, Robert's Death Zamuel Law and the warriors of the Zanginis and Solis clans glanced at the battle with a sense of shock, awe, and admiration. Cain faced the Soul King and the warriors of the Kraken and Umbra clans head-on. One had to admit that the Soul King's strategy and battle formation skills were amazing, as he was able to guide the 6 warriors of the Kraken clan and 4 of the Umbra clan with great precision, allowing them to achieve a synergy. However, even then, the one in control of the battlefield was Cain. The movements of the Godslayer human could only be described as flawless. He was able to respond to all physical attacks, either overwhelming them with his immense strength or countering them with flawless precision. As for the spells coming from the warriors of the Umbra and Kraken clans, he would either dodge them or redirect them toward the enemies around him. Of the 11 warriors attacking Cain, the only one able to pressure him was the Soul King with his unique broadsword. Yet, even with the powers of the space treasure, Cain was able to dodge and face the strikes of the Soul King without losing control of the battlefield. Cain had just sent one member of the Kraken clan flying away with a fist-sized indentation on his chest when his eyes narrowed, and he moved to the side just in time to avoid the Soul King's broadsword from striking him. The power of air assimilation not only improved his agility and reflexes, but also his perception, as he could feel any disturbance in the wind. Even if the Soul King could hide from Cain's ego wave, he could not hide his presence from the wind. Of course, the pseudo-multidimensional scan force field also detected the Dark King's movement, but if Cain were to wait for the system to warn him, it would be too late in a battle of this level. His reaction had to be instinctive, and any delay could lead to serious wounds. Cain had just dodged the broadsword when his right leg was set on fire, and he rotated his body, sending an explosive kick to the chest of the Soul King, sending him flying away while spewing blood. Just as Cain sent the Soul King away, 2 hammers flashed at him, one charged with oceanic pressure and the other with destructive shadows. Robert and a warrior of the Umbra clan struck toward Cain with their weapons, but just as their hammers danced on his figure, he vanished. There was a sense of shock in the warrior of the Umbra clan as he saw how Cain faded. The next second, he and Robert looked up as they felt a powerful concentration of energy. They saw the Godslayer human on the ceiling, while a massive amount of space force and blood energy gathered in his right and left hands.
Quantum dive.
Cain used the ceiling as a jumping surface, combining the power of his impulse with quantum laceration, transforming both hands into spears. Robert and the warrior of the Umbra clan were not able to react in time, and Cain's right and left hands pierced their chests and embedded them into the ground, destroying their internal organs and killing them. Just like that, Two more promising stars of the Deus Behemoth Empire perished, and that was just the beginning as Cain flashed toward the rest of the warriors, his slaughter aura growing stronger and stronger.
I will kill you.
The Soul King shouted, and it was clear by the state of the soul force in his eyes that his mind state was influenced by the emotion of Nakuo, the battle vessel. Cain's eyes narrowed as he saw the Soul King lunging toward him with a maniacal and murderous expression, and the man was not alone as the lost two astral cultivators of the Kraken clan were by his side. Cain marched toward the trio, and just as they were less than 100 meters away from each other, his eyes glowed with burning light, and a second blast of solar force emerged from his eyes, directed at the Soul King. Regardless of his mental state, the Soul King was a seasoned warrior, so he immediately put his broadsword before his chest, using the weapon as a shield against the beams of Sun Force. The weapon was able to resist the beams of Solar Force, but Cain's Sun eyes managed to push the Soul King thousands of meters away, allowing him to face the two members of the Kraken clan without interference. Cain's eyes sharpened as he pushed third gear to its limits and focused on the power of the Law of Wind and Law of Space to enhance his speed. Immediately after that, the power of Space Force and blood energy charged his palm once more, allowing him to trigger a horizontal quantum dive.
ZNNNN.
The sound of space tearing was the only thing that the two warriors of the Kraken clan heard before Cain vanished, only to reappear behind them the next second. They turned their heads and focused on the young man, but fell to the ground the next second as there was a hole in their chests where their hearts were supposed to be. Cain showed no emotion as he killed those men, but the next second his aura weakened tremendously, and his face grew pale. Finally, the natural energy that had saturated his body ran out, diminishing his physical might and energy pool so much that it made him feel beyond exhausted.
Now,
The Soul King noticed how Cain's aura suddenly grew much weaker and the strength force that flooded his body and energy pools vanished, so he shouted for the warriors of the Umbra and Kraken clans, still alive, to attack with all they had. Cain's eyes burst with red light as he saw two astral cultivators from the Umbra clan flashing toward him, while the rest fired spells against him. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 579, Defeating the Soul King. It was true that now that the natural energy had faded, Cain had grown weaker, but he was still an extremely powerful warrior with unique abilities and monstrous divine talent. 3 typhoons of oceanic power came from Cain's right, while the astral cultivators of the Umbra clan attacked with their shadow blades, accompanied by a massive dark spear sent by their essence cultivator. Cain made a sharp move to the left, taking control of 2 of the typhoons and redirecting their power toward the remaining astral cultivators from the Umbra clan. The duo was not able to block the attacks, taking them head-on. Had the astral cultivators from the Umbra clan been at their peak, they might have been able to survive, but they were badly wounded, so that blast was enough to push their bodies beyond their limits and stop their hearts. 2 more apotheosis masters perished, but it came at a price as Cain could only raise his arms and push his astral wave to its peak to resist the impact from the lost typhoon and shadow spear. Cain was encompassed in an explosion of shadows and oceanic pressure that made his bones tremble, and if that was not enough, the next second a broadsword came crashing down toward his head, intending to split open his skull. The flow had already shown Cain the attack from the Soul King, so he was able to take a step back and raise his arms, using them as a shield against the broadsword. The strike left deep lacerations on Cain's arms that reached all the way to the bone, sending him flying away, but even as his body was hurtled without control, he was still able to summon slaughter. The Soul King had already chased after Cain, trying to take advantage of the attack and unleash an onslaught when he saw the blade appear, and how, mid-flight, the young man was able to charge the holy weapon.
Quantum laceration.
Cain waved slaughter, sending 2 spatial rifts charged with a monstrous amount of blood energy toward the Soul King. Despite the Soul King's killing zeal, he had suffered too much damage during this battle, so if he were to take those strikes directly, he might lose the ability to fight. That was why he stopped his chase and raised his broadsword, intending to neutralize the spatial rifts with his oceanic pressure. However, just as the spatial rifts were about to reach the Soul King, they made a sharp turn, one moving to the right and another to the left, bypassing the Dark King and going after an essence cultivator of the Umbra clan and another of the Kraken clan. The spatial rifts were too fast, and the essence cultivators had used all their power in their last attack, so they were not able to counter them. Once the quantum lacerations reached their side, they burst with a might that the Duke was not able to endure.
BOOOMMMs. BOOOMMMs.
The Soul King's eyes widened as he saw those explosions burst to pieces the essence cultivators, and there was a sense of utter shock, as the sharp turn of the spatial rifts could only mean that Cain had pushed one of the core laws of the Crimson Void cultivation technique to the law integration rank. To reach the law integration rank in a law and allow your spells to gain spirituality was an incredible feat, and something that shocked the Soul King to the core, as he could not understand how the young man achieved such monstrous mastery over the laws. The shock made the already unstable state of mind of the Soul King tremble once again, breaking his focus. Immediately, his willpower burst into effect, but that shot weakness was fatal as Cain had vanished from his perception. Where did he go? The Soul King shouted inside his mind and did not have to wait for the answer for long as he saw Cain rising from the ground right behind the lost two members of the Kraken clan. The two essence cultivators were not able to detect anything until Slaughter severed their heads. Cain was truly exhausted at this point and was having a hard time regulating his breath, but there was no sense of weakness in his eyes as he turned to the Soul King. Right now, all the members of the Umbra clan and Kraken clan were dead, and only the two remained. The Soul King could see the weakened state of Cain and how he had truly depleted himself, but just as the thought that he could win appeared in his mind, he saw how the warriors of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan were flashing out of the astral bloodline chamber full of smiles and killing intent. Of course, the warriors of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan were badly wounded due to the radiation poisoning. But the Soul King did not trick himself and knew he had little to no energy left and all his vital organs were wounded.
Damn it.
The Soul King shouted one last time before turning around and flying away with what little strength he had. Samuel and Law soon exited the chamber and reached next to Cain. The duo glanced at the Godslayer human, and there was nothing but respect and pure awe in their eyes as they could not believe just how powerful and extraordinary this one had become. However, they did not waste time and soon focused on the road as the Soul King was flashing away. They were weak and wounded, but they could not allow the man to escape, even if the one inside the astral bloodline realm was an incarnation.
Do not move, just wait here and heal.
Before Samuel, Law, or anyone else could go after the Soul King, they heard Cain's voice as he closed his eyes. The warriors of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan did not know what Cain was trying to do, but while they wanted to kill the Soul King, none of them dared to even question the words of the young man. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 580, Sealing the Soul King. The warriors of the Solis and Zangini's clan were ready to follow his command, but as they considered the word
healing,
they all showed complicated smiles. The radiation poisoning that accumulated in their flesh and blood was too much, and the damage to their genetic material had reached a catastrophic point. Although they would survive, they would face dire sequelae, and trying to advance to the divine ascension realm in the current condition was nothing but a dream. Of course, there was a way to heal, but that would require the help of a divine genetic coda, and it would have to be someone at the absolute peak of the profession. All of them had high backgrounds, but the help of such a person was not easy to obtain, and even if they could, there was no certainty that person could fix all the flaws in their genome. Before, the warriors of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan had not worried about that since they were just concerned about survival. Yet now that they were able to think about the future again, a downcast expression appeared on all their faces. It was at this point that Cain's red force field covered all the warriors, And the next second, a sense of utter shock appeared on their faces as they felt an intangible force acting on their genes.
Relax and rest. The genetic damage the radiation poisoning did will fade.
Samuel, Law, and all the others could not believe what they just heard, and the way they looked at Cain was as if the young man was an omnipotent divine entity capable of miracles. Although analyzing their genes was not possible, their ego waves allowed him to perceive the changes in their bodies and feel how the catastrophic damage was starting to fade. They were still badly wounded, and many of their cells had suffered necrosis. However, through the atomic genetic suppression tool, Cain was fixing the genome of the remaining cells, so as long as they rested, their vitality would push them back to their peak. It would take months or maybe even years to fully heal, and the Deus behemoths understood that, but it did not erase the thrill in their eyes. A few years was nothing for them, and right now the only emotion in their eyes was divine adoration for Cain. The warriors of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan would not hesitate to follow Cain to the gates of hell if this one commanded it. Cain perceived the gazes of the Deus behemoths. Still, he did not have time to wonder about them, as his full focus was on resonating with the elements and drawing the natural energy into his flesh, blood, and energy pools. It took Cain nearly 10 minutes of uninterrupted focus before finally filling his body and energy pools with natural energy, regaining his immense physical might and overwhelming abilities. Luckily for Samuel and the others, it was around that time that the atomic genetic suppression finished repressing all the genetic damage that the radiation from the astral bloodline Ka had done to their bodies.
Wait here.
That was the last thing the warriors of the Solis and Zangini's clan heard before Cain flashed forward at a speed some of them could not even follow with their eyes. Although they were curious about Cain's decision to go after the Soul King alone, none of them disobeyed the command and sat silently as they focused on healing. The Soul King was flying, using all the power left in the battle vessel. He did not care what happened to Nakuo, as long as he found another Deus behemoth that he could possess and silently leave the astral bloodline realm. Although it filled his heart with rage and frustration, the Soul King had to admit that he would not be able to kill Cain inside the astral bloodline realm, as the young man had simply grown too powerful. I need my true body to kill him, but even if I come to the Hyperion continent, the patriarchs from the Solis clan and Zangini's clan will stand in my way. The frustration in the Soul King grew as he realized he had no path to kill the young man, despite being one of the 10 Dark Kings and having reached the late Divine Ascension realm.
Damn it, damn it, damn it.
The Soul King shouted, and there was an expression of utter madness on his face. He was no longer able to suppress the raging emotions of Nakuo. It was during that outrage that the Dark King heard a voice in the wind.
Did you think I would let you escape?
Shock appeared in the Soul King's eyes as he looked up and saw Cain flying right above him. He had made sure to hide his aura and randomize routes at all intersections, which was why he was stunned to see Cain manage to track him down. The Soul King had hidden well, but Cain could merge with the wind, using it as his eyes and ears. Of course, Cain would not explain that, and before the Soul King could do anything, he waved his right hand, charged with an extremely potent quantum laceration.
Oh,
The Soul King screamed in pain as Cain cut his arm and legs, before striking his back and shattering his spine, sending him crashing into the ground. Having lost his extremities and his spine shattered, the Soul King revealed a truly pitiful state, but Cain's eyes showed not even the slightest iota of mercy as he flashed down and shattered the man's sternum with his knee.
oh,
The Soul King was once again going to scream from the pain when Cain squeezed his throat, stopping him from making any sound. Cain did not say a word as his eyes began to glow with red light, and he sent his ego wave into the battle vessel, sealing the energy of this one and generating a cocoon around the brain. He did not want to destroy the Soul King's incarnation, but to seal it. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 581, Crippling the Soul King, I. Cain's eyes burned with red light as he set his ego wave ablaze, using its full power to neutralize the energy inside the battle vessel, so the Soul King could not blow it up. Destroying the fragment of the Soul King present in the astral bloodline realm would surely harm the Dark King's true soul, but sealing it would do much more than that. After all, even if Cain was not proficient in the soul path, there were great masters in the Deus Behemoth Empire, and any of them could use the fragment of the Soul King to do a lot of damage to the man through curses or other types of skills. The Soul King understood all that, which was why a sense of horror appeared in his gaze upon seeing the red force field flooding Nakuo's brain, where the car of his incarnation was present. If he allowed Cain to seal his soul force and take him out of the astral bloodline realm, who knows what type of damage would his true soul in Gaia receive once the masters of the Deus Behemoth Empire get their hands on it. However, it did not take long for the horror in the Soul King's eyes to turn into pure and monstrous hatred as the soul force in them burst with power.
Fucking brat, you asked for it.
A massive amount of soul force emerged from the Soul King's eyes the next second, all marching directly into Cain's mind and his soul sea. The Soul King was a true titan, a life form with a cultivation base at the peak of the divine ascension rank, who could unleash power at an even higher level. Even if the piece of him inside the astral bloodline realm was just an incarnation of soul force, the power it could unleash would be disastrous. Yet, upon seeing that soul force marching toward him, the only emotion in Cain's eyes was thrill, and he shut down all his defenses, allowing the Soul King's soul force to pierce into his soul sea directly. A dark blue electromagnetic force field pierced into Cain's soul sea, and while it seemed like a seamless agglomeration of soul force, someone powerful enough could see that it carried spirituality, more specifically the will of the Soul King. The Soul King was shocked to see he managed to seamlessly pierce into Cain's soul sea so easily. Honestly, he did not believe he could truly reach the young man's soul sea and only wanted to harm him and avoid being sealed. Although it was shocking and filled him with confusion, a dark and twisted joy appeared in the Soul King as he could harm Cain's soul, and maybe even possess the young man, obtaining control over the most talented existence in Ether. Unfortunately for the Soul King, before he could even make a move, a gargantuan golden hand appeared and began to enclose the dark blue force field. What? The Soul King had invaded the minds of hundreds of life forms across his life, including that of true titans and gods, but he had never seen something like this. It made no sense to see such a massive golden hand inside the mind of an apotheosis realm master. The power behind the golden hand was so immense that the Soul King felt totally and absolutely powerless in front of it. The hand had not even enclosed the dark blue force field, and he already lost all control of his soul force, being paralyzed and at the mercy of the golden entity.
Do not harm it, just seal it. I need the ego and will inside that soul force to be intact.
Just as the golden hand was about to obliterate the dark blue force field, a voice echoed inside Cain's soul dimension, coming from none other than the Alter Ego. The gargantuan golden hand froze for a second as it heard those words, and the next moment its destructive power changed into a sealing force. The Soul King could do nothing as golden runes began to appear all over the dark blue force field, and it did not take long for this one to take the form of a golden blue sphere floating on top of Cain's soul sea. Once that was over, a second voice echoed across Cain's soul sea, and it belonged to none other than Apex.
You can use your alter ego to influence your soul, so it means your willpower has evolved beyond the limits of the apotheosis realm. You turned 20 just a few days ago, and you have advanced so much. Very good, brat. Hahoted.
A laugh emerged from the sun seed, something odd for Cain, showing just how thrilled he was with his ploy to work. Sealing the Soul King's soul force inside Nakuo's mind was just trying his luck, and he was not very confident in his ability. His true goal was for the Soul King to invade his soul sea, as there was a force that could seal even beings that inhabited the astral sea.
I assume you want to obtain the Soul King's memories.
Apex immediately understood the reason why Cain would not allow him to immediately destroy the Soul King. Cain had the Gluttony's Eye, an incredibly powerful ability that allowed him to obtain the memories of others. However, if he wanted to obtain the memories of the Soul King, Cain needed to consume the will and ego of the man.
You are right. I am done playing the offensive with the organization. But if I want to destroy them, I need to learn more about them. By the way, is the Soul King able to interact in any way with this soul force? HMPH brat, who do you think you are talking to? The moment I sealed him, I severed any connection from this soul force with the main source. Actually, the damage the Soul King endured from the seal is not any less than the total destruction of the dark blue force field.
Kane's thrill only increased as he heard those words. He was sure that the Soul King was not having a good time right now. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 582, Crippling the Soul King, It.
AHHHHHHH.
A scream of utter agony emerged from one of the most secluded and protected rooms in the Trinity Dark Towers inside the Zafir sector, which was currently controlled by the organization. The Soul King had just woken from his meditation a few seconds ago, and immediately he began to scream in utter and complete agony as he grabbed his head, while blood leaked from every single orifice in his face. It did not take long for three figures to immediately appear in the room. The Void King, Shadow King, and Blood King stared at the Soul King with shock. There was no damage on the Dark King's body, but the trio could feel the soul force of the man growing unstable, making it clear he had just suffered a severe spiritual wound. That was much worse than having his internal organs ravaged by destructive energies. The Soul King was in so much pain that he did not even notice the trio and continued twitching on the ground and screaming as the agony did not cease. A sharp look appeared in the eyes of the Void King and Shadow King, and they immediately put their hands over the Soul King's shoulders, restraining him while at the same time using their ego waves to force him into a coma. The duo wanted to help the Soul King, but the first thing they needed to do was stabilize his condition, and for that, they needed to stop the brain activity of the Dark King. The Blood King did not move a muscle as he saw the duo helping the Soul King. It was not that he did not want to help, and truth be told, he was happy when he saw the Soul King trembling in agony, as he truly loathed the man. However, the reason why the Blood King did not move a muscle was not animosity, but fear. After the initial burst of happiness at the Soul King's agony, he remembered the mission of this one, and a flash of enlightenment appeared in his eyes as he realized the most likely culprit for the Dark King's condition.
The Scarlet King, he did it.
The Void King and Shadow King narrowed their eyes as they heard the words full of terror coming from the Blood King. They were not fools and came to the same conclusion as the Blood King. Neither knew how it happened, but the two Dark Kings were sure that the piece of the Soul King in the Hyperion continent had been destroyed, and the only one they could think could perform that feat was the young man they wanted to kill more than anything. A flash of killing intent emerged in the Void King's eyes as he pictured Kane's face, but no matter how much he wanted it, he could not march into the Hyperion continent and kill the young man. Especially not now that the Soul King would enter a coma and their battle power would reduce significantly, making the war much more complicated. Unlike the Dark Kings, Kane's mood was great. He had just gotten rid of the threat in the astral bloodline realm and obtained great benefits, with the greatest being the inheritance of spirit from the primordial path.
Help me.
Kane's eyes widened as he heard that voice and looked down, only to see the battle vessel of the Soul King looking at him with pitiful eyes.
Oh, you regained your mind after the Soul King left. Interesting.
The one that was begging Kane for help, and that was used as the Soul King's battle vessel during the saga of the astral bloodline realm, was none other than Nakuo. The old man was still alive, but he would not be for long as his life force was fading away.
Please.
Nakuo could feel his life force vanishing and understood the identity of the man in front of him and the bad blood between them, but that did not stop him from begging. For the old man, there was nothing more important than survival.
Your life force is fading, and trying to save you is nearly impossible for me.
Kane paused at this moment as the red mask fused back into his skin, showing his face. And on it, there was a smile.
If I am honest, even if you were in perfect condition, I would still not let you leave this place alive. Goodbye.
That was the last thing Nakuo heard as Kane tapped his head, and the next second the old man's skull burst to pieces, spreading pieces of brain everywhere. Kane's smile did not fade after killing the man. Nakuo had targeted him, therefore his fate was sealed, and it was just a matter of time before his life ended. The moment anyone became his enemy, he would kill them. He did not care about their reasoning or background, only that they die. It was as simple as that for the Scarlet King. As for blasting Nakuo's head, Kane was not a fan of gory scenes, but he needed something inside the old man's brain. Kane looked among the brain matter and soon found a dark blue marble with millions of microscopic runes.
This must be the treasure the Soul King used to contain that piece of his soul force. It seems very high level.
Kane was impressed by the marble, but he did not know how it worked. However, that was not a problem, as he would gain all of the Soul King's memories after devouring the will of this one. After storing the marble, Kane sent Nakuo's body into the demonic devourer dimension, before taking the space ring and computer ring of this one and flying back to the warriors of the Zanginis clan and Solis clan. As Kane moved across the route at overwhelming speed, a profound expression appeared. He already had the soul force of the Soul King at his disposal, but obtaining the memories would not be simple. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 583, Gluttony Concept. Gluttony's eyes allows me to obtain the memories of the soul I consume, but for that, I need to overwhelm the willpower within them. And that is just the start. Even after overwhelming the ego in the soul force, fully assimilating the memories is not something easy to achieve, especially if it belongs to a powerful entity. If I want to improve the power of the ability, I need to go to its core, and that is the concept of gluttony. Just like the flow, the first ability he obtained directly from his past life's memories, Gluttony's eyes principles did not reside in the laws, but in the power of concepts. If Kane wanted to improve the power of Gluttony's eyes to consume the soul force of the Soul King and obtain his memories, he would have to master the concept of gluttony. However, that was easier said than done. Nothing was restricting Kane's ability to perceive and comprehend the concept of gluttony, but there was also nothing helping him. Concepts were very powerful but also very hard to master, and some might say even harder than the laws. In Ether, Kane had never heard of a treasure related to concepts, and one could only depend on themselves, and to some lesser extent, on the experience of others. The Sundering concept was very powerful, and Kane had made it grow constantly, but that was because it fitted his nature, and the Sun Seed helped him with it. Yet, the concept of gluttony was not very close to Kane's heart and car ideals. Without any assistance, Kane would take years, or maybe even decades, to improve the concept of gluttony to the point of assimilating the memories in the Soul King's dark blue force field. Wait. A flash appeared in Kane's eyes as he was considering the concept of gluttony, and something came to his mind. A treasure that he had been using for years and whose power was truly akin to the desire for frenzied consumption. And even better, this treasure was inside his soul. Kane stopped flying, and a sense of utter focus appeared in his eyes as he took a deep breath and adopted a meditative position in the air. His ego wave burst with power as he focused on a unique dimension held inside his soul that contained a multicolored flame that could consume flesh, blood, and even mountains. The Sky Fiend flame tool from the Gluttony module was a power that could consume all things and that was always ravenous for more. Kane focused on the flame, allowing his mind and ego to run free, trying to pierce the core principle and power behind this one. Kane did not move a single muscle for over an hour, but his ego wave burst with more and more power as he lost himself in that majestic multicolored flame. Suddenly, a sense of enlightenment appeared in his eyes, and he extended his right hand. Due to his cultivation, Kane's body and essence star were in a constant cycle, consuming the energy around him. But as the power of his ego wave focused on his right hand, the devouring force in that area grew nearly 20% all of a sudden. The realization broke Kane's focus, and the devouring upgrade faded, but he still smiled as he was on the right track. The power of the Gluttony module found its core in the power of concepts. Kane gazed at his hand, and as he focused on it again, and his ego wave burst with power, the enhanced devouring force came back. It is just the most basic mastery over the gluttony concept, but he can train it by focusing on the Sky Fiend flame. It seems that the power had been inside me this whole time. Cain burst into laughter and almost hit himself for not realizing the connection sooner. Now that was over, he continued his flight, and it did not take long for him to reach the warriors of the Zanginis clan and Soli's clan. The group was not worried about Cain, as they did not believe this one could lose, so they focused calmly on their healing, and their condition had improved greatly in the past hours. They were still pale, but they would be able to fly without a problem and could use nearly 80% of their battle power in case a fight were to occur. Cain focused on the warriors of the Soli's clan and Zanginis clan and softly nodded as he saw they had healed. Then he focused on the battlefield and saw nothing had moved from how he left it. The broken corpses were still spread everywhere, as well as their treasure. Clearly, the warriors of the Soli's clan and Zanginis clan did not dare to even think of taking his spoils of war, making a smile appear on the young man. His eyes glowed as he sent the corpses into the demonic devourer dimension and collected all the space rings and computer rings. Cain focused on the computer rings of the Umbra clan and Kraken clan, and a sharp light appeared in them as he used the AI chip module to obtain the information. It would come in handy once he exited the astral bloodline realm.
Let's go. I will take you to the Starlight Refinement Chamber.
The eyes of the warriors of the Zanginis clan and Soli's clan glowed as they heard those words. The Starlight Refinement Chamber would be of great help to them, especially in their current condition, so they did not waste time as they rose from the ground and followed the Godslayer human back to the Grey Road. Cain had to slow down his speed to not leave behind the others, but still, it did not take long for them to reach the Grey Road. Once they were there, they would usually have to spend a long time traveling in search of a route that unleashed a unique energy flow, but things were different now. He descended to the ground and used earth attunement to blend with it, slowly allowing his perception to spread for thousands of kilometers, and then he opened his eyes and focused on a path.
Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 584, Back to the Mind Cosmos Chamber. Cain did not waste time and guided the warriors of the Soli's clan and Zanginis forward on the Grey Road for half an hour before diving into a route. It didn't take long for the group to encounter a horde of monsters made of bones and foul liquid. The warriors of the Soli's clan and Zanginis clan smiled, but were not surprised to see the slime monsters, since these were the ones guarding the Starlight Refinement Chamber. Cain had told them he would take them here, and there was no doubt in their minds that the young man would keep his word. Zamiel and Law looked at each other and nodded as they were ready to command the warriors of the Soli's clan and Zanginis clan into battle when they saw Cain's energy burst, and how a maelstrom of space force and blood energy surrounded his body. That was the same attack Cain used to kill Talon and send the warriors of the Umbra clan flying away, and it seemed to combine the blood space vortex and the power in his body, transforming him into a blood meteor with a golden car capable of overwhelming destruction. Cain did not say a word as he flashed forward, carrying a meteoric impulse as he dived toward the horde of slime monsters, shattering all of them to pieces and clearing the route alone in a matter of seconds. The warriors of the Soli's clan and Zanginis clan could only watch as Cain obliterated hundreds of thousands of monsters before making them disappear and guiding them forward without a single second of delay. Due to Cain's power, it didn't take long for the group to reach the end of the route, and they saw a massive chamber ahead of them. It was a massive rectangular chamber with fibers extending in all directions. Despite being extremely thin, those fibers were extremely resilient. Still, the truly important part was the starlight glow they unleashed, and how that light was able to refine their blood and plasma, improving their vitality and the body's immune systems, as well as their regeneration abilities. A look of ecstasy appeared on the faces of Zamiel, Law, and all the other warriors of the Zanginis clan and Soli's clan as the starlight web covering the Starlight Refinement Chamber could improve their healing rate, reducing the time they would need to fully recover from the damage of the radiation poisoning significantly. Although the group was eager to enter the Starlight refinement chamber, none of them made a move and waited for Cain, as the young man stood at the entrance and did not seem to be moving forward. Cain noticed the eyes of the warriors of the Zanginis clan and Soli's clan, but he did not say a word and simply extended his hand, beginning to draw the starlight into his body. He felt the power flooding into his blood and plasma, but after a few seconds, he shook his head. As I guessed. It is useless for me. The refinement inside Anok's mind dimension had tempered his body from the inside out and healed any wound left in him, which was why the power of the Starlight Web was not useful to him. He already expected that much and only came here to bring Zamuel and the others.
Stay here until the closing of the astral bloodline realm. We will see each other again on Amazon. I will stay in the Mind Cosmos chamber.
Zamuel, Law, and the others were surprised to hear that Cain would be leaving, but they were able to guess that the Mind Cosmos chamber would be more useful to the young man.
We understand. Good luck, son Avatar. Hope to see you soon, Colonel Lorifer.
Zamuel and Law adopted a respectful stance as they said goodbye to Cain, as did all the other warriors of the Zanginis clan and Soli's clan. Cain showed the group a small smile and nodded before giving one final look at the Starlight refinement chamber. So these are Anok's kidneys. Interesting. With that last thought, Cain flashed back into the route like a comet, moving at a speed that befitted a middle divine ascension master. The path back to the Mind Cosmos chamber was easy as Cain already knew the route and there were no monsters on his path. However, just as he was midway on his journey, his eyes narrowed as he detected several life forms inside the chamber. This could be a little complicated. That thought crossed Cain's mind, but after ensuring his body was saturated with natural energy, he continued flashing forward and didn't take long to reach the Mind Cosmos chamber and see the Mind Destroyer Cyclone in the middle. However, the cyclone was not the only thing in the chamber, as there were also 10 Deus behemoths, specifically the 10 warriors from the Gravitas clan. The warriors of the Gravitas clan had arrived a few hours ago and were gazing at the Mind Destroyer Cyclone, wondering about the change in size and intensity of this one compared to previous times when they noticed a newcomer. Naughton's eyes narrowed, and a cold light appeared in his eyes as the person that just arrived was none other than the young man who dared to disrespect him about a month ago. He was not alone, since all the warriors of the Gravitas clan glanced at Cain with coldness, and that feeling just intensified when they saw he was alone.
Are you lost, little boy?
A man from the Gravitas clan, nearly 2.5 meters tall, uttered those words as he calmly walked toward Cain with a condescending and narcissistic smile. Naughton and the rest of the group did not say a word and prepared to watch a show. The name of the man was Golan, and he was a flesh calamity apotheosis master. Of course, the members of the Gravitas clan knew Cain was stronger than Golan, but none of them thought the Godslayer human would dare to make a move since he was alone. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 585, Using the Mind Destroyer Cyclone. Galan believed the same as the rest of the members of the Gravitas clan, which was why he dared to show such a cocky attitude. He was ready to humiliate Cain and gain some points with Naughton. Cain did not say a word, and as he saw Galan walking toward him, he could only sigh and softly shake his head. The nasty smile on Galan's face grew wider upon seeing Cain's attitude, as he was sure the young man had given up on remaining in the chamber and was just sighing his sorrows away.
Haha, I will not make things hard for you, little boy. Just express your regret for your past wrongdoing, and I will let you be on your...
Galan was not able to finish his sentence since the moment he stood in front of Cain. A punch landed on his jaw and sent him blasting to the ceiling of the chamber. Utter shock appeared in the eyes of the members of the Gravitas clan upon seeing Galan blasted into the ceiling with so much strength that he was embedded in it. The man was still alive but had fallen unconscious, and they were sure he had several bones broken.
You dare? Damn humans.
Immediately after seeing the blow to Galan, the members of the Gravitas clan burst with rage, but just as they were about to move, a stronger voice appeared.
Everybody stop.
The one who stopped them was not Naughton, but Yorick, the same person who had tried to influence Cain before to help them with the people of the Fenrir clan. A solemn expression appeared on Yorick's face. His words managed to stop the warriors of the Gravitas clan from attacking, but they all looked at him, demanding an answer, including Naughton. Yorick's eyes turned to Cain, and a sharp and wise light appeared in them as he spoke.
He did not use any form of energy in that attack, only his physical strength.
Upon hearing those words, realization appeared in the eyes of Naughton and the rest of the warriors of the Gravitas clan. Before, they were too shocked and enraged, but now that they thought about it, they did not feel any form of wave coming from Cain, and it seemed he only relied on his physical strength for that punch. However, if that was the case, then just how powerful was Cain's body for him to nearly shatter the skull of a peak-flesh calamity apotheosis master like Galen? That question appeared in the minds of all the warriors of the Gravitas clan, and their shock only grew as they remembered that Cain was supposed to be an essence evolution cultivator. Cain focused on Yorick, and he softly nodded his head. Technically, he had used natural energy, but this one flawlessly fused with his flesh, blood, and energy pools. Had he used Astral Wave to enhance his punch, that attack would have killed Galen, which was a little too much.
You are indeed wise.
Cain complimented the Yorick's cool mind before walking forward. He did not move to the side and headed straight to the group of the Gravitas clan, and when they saw him get near, they instinctively moved to the side. Naughton saw Cain's back and clenched his fists with frustration, but in the end, he only shook his head.
We are leaving.
The rest of the warriors from the Gravitas clan were surprised to hear that. It took a lot of work to reach the Mind Cosmos chamber, but they would be leaving after only a few hours. Naughton did not say anything else, and he flew up to get Galen before exiting the chamber. The members of the Gravitas clan were not happy about leaving, but they followed their leader. Cain noticed the group of the Gravitas clan leaving and shrugged his shoulders. Naughton would not fight him, but neither would this one remain in the same place, so he chose to leave. None of that mattered to Cain, and he simply headed closer and closer to the Mind Destroyer Cyclone. The power of the Mind Destroyer Cyclone had weakened slightly after Anarch went into slumber. Still, Cain was forced to stop due to the overwhelming mental pressure once he reached the 500-meter mark. Cain then sat down and adopted a meditative position as the red light in his eyes burst with power. The mental pressure would help him strengthen his ego wave, and that would, in time, improve his mastery of the concepts. That was not all, as Cain also divided part of his focus to the Starworm blood and Starworm essence in the demonic devourer dimension, and began to feed his rebirth heart and essence star. Just as Cain was ready to fully immerse in his cultivation, an inquisitive light appeared in his eyes, and he spoke to the system. System, scan me. He had already done a scan shortly after taking the first step into the primordial path and reaching the late Wave King rank, but he was curious as to the objective improvement granted by the 21 Revolution refinement. Scanning vessel, scan of vessel completed. Name, Cain Lorifa. Race, Godslayer humankind. Path of power, astral rebirth, late Wave King, essence evolution, late Wave King. Lineage, Soli's lineage, maximum purity. Wave talent. Stats. Strength, 204, 206, 277.1. Agility, 130, 132, 202.9. Vitality, 248, 252, 327.9. Astral wave, 155, 161, 221.2. Essence wave, 177, 180, 242.7. Blood energy, astral, 220, 221, 2. Blood energy, essence, 235, 254, 2. Astral blood saturation, 89% completion. Law mastery. Law of blood, low law integration. Law of space, middle law fragmentation. Earth law, deep law fragmentation. Water law, deep law fragmentation. Fire law, deep law fragmentation. Wind law, deep law fragmentation. Note, wave virus inside the vessel enhanced wave talent by 2.7%. The effect has diminished as the vessel's foundation is too strong for the wave virus to have an impact. Note, Natural energy has enhanced every aspect of the vessel's physical body, as well as both astral wave and essence wave. The current value is marked between. Once natural energy is depleted, the vessel's power will return to base stats. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 586, Back to Amazon. Cain showed a smile full of excitement. His physical stats had not enhanced much, but that was not a surprise as the tribulation enhancement focused on talent, not raw strength. And in that aspect, Cain had improved tremendously. His law of blood had evolved to the law integration level, which was why his blood energy, essence, increased so much, and his other main laws advanced a stage, all of them growing much more powerful. As for his body, his astral blood saturation reached a mind-blowing 89% and was just 1% shy of the mighty 90%, which would allow him to trigger the astral blood ability for hours without a problem. After that burst of thrill and excitement, Cain focused, putting most of his focus on the Sky Fiend flame, leaving 2 trails of his mind power to ensure the safe growth of his paths of power. Back in the capital of the Deus Behemoth Empire, Amazon, the patriarchs of all 10 great bloodlines and their entourage were standing on top of the respective totem statues as they waited calmly for the return of the geniuses of the younger generation. Even the mighty Ian Vulcano, the emperor of the Deus Behemoth Emperor, was present since this would be a very solemn event, and there would be times when animosity could arise. After all, the astral bloodline realm was a dimension full of treasure, and it was not strange for clashes to happen between the clans, and sometimes those fights could end in bloodshed, leading to animosity between the 10 great bloodlines. Not to mention that the people who went into the astral bloodline realm were the most talented individuals of their respective clans, and they would soon have the chance to rise into the divine ascension realm, becoming powerhouses capable of influencing the military power of Ether. Although the true Titans couldn't figure out the exact time when the astral bloodline would end, by perceiving the disturbance in space, they were able to get an approximate. Lord Kabuto stood on the statue of the Solis clan, and by his side were Ka Eldakenia and Lusmia. There were solemn expressions on the faces of both men, as they could not help but grow nervous at the idea of something going wrong. Lord Kabuto saw in Cain the salvation of the Deus Behemoth Empire, and was also very fond of the young man's bravery and straightforward nature, while Ka Elda Lusmia had sent into the astral bloodline realm his youngest daughter, Lauren. Not far from them stood the group of the Zanguines clan. Zuko Zanguines' face was solemn as he waited, and close to him were the other 4 divine ascension realm masters of the Zanguines clan, including his eldest son, Prince Kauto. Suddenly, the eyes of all the patriarchs grew sharp as they focused on the portal, surrounded by the statues, as they felt an overwhelming space force flooding the place. It did not take long for the fluctuation in space to reach an overwhelming level, and the next second all warriors that were still alive inside the astral bloodline realm were expelled. Some of them stood in the air, while others lay flat on the ground, and some were adopting meditative positions. As they were expelled in the position, they were inside the astral bloodline realm. The faces of Lord Kabuto and Lord Zanguines immediately brightened with thrill as they saw how all the warriors from their clans had come back alive, and their auras were frighteningly stronger than before. Of course, not everybody was filled with thrill. There were some patriarchs who showed complicated expressions upon seeing some members of their clans missing, but as ancient entities with thousands of years of age, they were able to maintain a composed stance. However, the same could not be said about the patriarchs of the Kraken clan and Umbra. Their eyes were full of shock and disbelief as they looked around the portal and realized no warriors of their clans were present, which could only mean one thing. The eyes of the patriarch of the Kraken clan, Gawkin Kraken, were full of disbelief and shock as he did not understand how all the people of his clan were gone, and the same shock could be seen in Terran Umbra, the patriarch of the Umbra clan. Yet, unlike Gawkin, other than shock there was also dread and apprehension in Terran's eyes as a terrified notion appeared in his eyes. The rest of the patriarchs also soon realized the lack of any member of the Umbra clan and Kraken clan, and all adopted a solemn stance as they raised their guards, since the total annihilation of a clan had never happened before, much less two. Just as Ian was about to put order and find out what had just happened, one of the members of the younger generation opened his eyes.
Boom. Boom.
Everybody turned to the origin and noticed those blasts emerged from none other than the Godslayer human. Then they saw how a pillar of dark purple and sky blue energy burst out of Cain's body, revealing a late-wave king cultivation base in the essence evolution path of power and astral rebirth path of power. Shock and disbelief appeared in the eyes of not only the patriarchs, but also of the rest of the Deus behemoths on the portal as they witnessed Cain's dual cultivation. And before they could even overcome that shock, another explosion echoed, this time emerging from the sky. Along with that thunderous explosion that seemed it would shatter the sky came a multicolored firestorm. That was a force all patriarchs had faced, and whose power even they could not help but take seriously.
Ego destruction tribulation.
Ian Vulcano's face was solemn as he gazed at the growing storm of multicolored flames flooding the sky and turned to the Godslayer human responsible for such a phenomenon. Barely 20 years old and already able to incite the ego destruction tribulation. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 587, Unveiling the Truth, I. The Emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire's eyes glowed with admiration as he realized that Cain was already on the verge of the third realm of the ego eternal path of power. However, he did not lose focus, and immediately his aura exploded, drawing everybody's attention.
All Deus behemoths on the portal, go to your respective clans. Everybody else will stay put. If anyone dares to make a move, I will take it as a personal offense.
The first part of Ian's words reflected his worry toward the Deus behemoths of the younger generation, as he did not want them to become collateral damage to the ego destruction tribulation. As for the second part, it was directed at the patriarchs, since he would not let anyone harm the young human.
HMPH, if anyone dares to even think of harming my son, the Solis clan will start a bloodline war with you until only one clan remains.
The Emperor had just finished speaking when Lord Kabuto's voice echoed with an explosive might that did not lose to that of the ego destruction tribulation, as a monstrous slaughter intent emerged from his soul, making it clear he would fulfill his words if anyone were to attack Cain. The patriarchs of the other clans were surprised by the killing zeal in the patriarch of the Solis clan, and they were about to be even more shocked when they saw a second burst of slaughter aura emanating from the statue of the blood snake.
You will not have to worry about only the Solis clan, since I myself will butcher anyone that dares to put a single hand on that young man.
Lord Zangine's eyes were devoid of emotions, and his butchering aura was so intense that the patriarchs of the other clans could feel a metallic taste in their mouths as if the air was flooded with blood. If anyone even considered making a move after the words of Ian, that immediately vanished as it would be the same as enraging 3 true titans, and 2 of them were willing to go to war and exterminate their bloodlines. Silence echoed as everybody kept put, and no one made a move, all of them gazing between the young man on the ground, whose eyes burst with stronger and stronger willpower, and the immense multicolored storm in the sky that kept growing. It didn't take long for the multicolored storm to expand over 50,000 meters, and it just kept growing more and more powerful. Lord Kabuto couldn't help but clench his fists as he saw how the multicolored storm grew past 60 kilometers in diameter, and a sense of utter thrill appeared in his eyes. The stronger the ego destruction tribulation, the more powerful and reinforced Cain's potential would become. The young man was just 20 years old, so for him to incite such a ferocious response from the world meant that he had faced countless life and death tribulations and harvested every single lucky chance in his path, truly exploding his destiny beyond its limits. Lord Kabuto was not the only one shocked as they saw how the ego destruction tribulation just kept growing until it finally expanded for a mind-blowing 81,000 meters.
A 9x9 ego destruction tribulation.
Lord Zanginis shouted with thrill and excitement as he saw the might of the multicolored flame, reaching the zenith of the destructive might an ego destruction tribulation could attain. For Cain to achieve that destructive might at such a young age, it was clear to all that the car of the young man's talent was not in his astral rebirth or essence evolution paths of power, but in the ethereal ego eternal path of power. The red light in Cain's eyes reached its zenith as he looked at the multicolored flame. Fighting spirit burst inside Cain's heart as he was eager to flash into the sky and face the tribulation. If I surpass it, my battle power would reach the absolute peak of the middle divine ascension rank, maybe even rising to the late stage, gaining the right to call myself a titan. As that thought crossed Cain's mind, his desire to face the ego destruction tribulation only grew stronger, and there was not a single shred of fear in his heart. Yet, he felt that something was missing, as if this was not the limit. A9x9 ego destruction tribulation had always been considered the peak of the tribulation power one would face before their evolution to the third realm. Yet, Cain felt deep in his gut that there was something even greater for him. That was why, as the multicolored storm was about to reach its zenith and unleash a storm of mind-destroying flames, Cain closed his eyes and began to seal his ego wave, hiding it from the world. As soon as Cain's willpower was hidden, the intent inside the ego destruction tribulation grew unstable, and its aura spread everywhere, trying to find the reason for its birth. However, upon finding none, the multicolored storm that had spread for 81,000 meters began to disperse. The true Titans saw how the ego destruction tribulation began to fade and noticed Cain's willpower seemingly fading, and they all understood that the young man had chosen to delay the tribulation. Even those that had some bias against Cain softly nodded as it was indeed wise to delay the process and prepare yourself, since the power of a 9x9 ego destruction tribulation was not a simple matter, and there had been geniuses in the past that were too eager and ended up perishing. Cain noticed the intent behind the eyes of the people watching him and knew many of them thought he was afraid of facing the multicolored storm. That was not the case, but there was no reason to correct them. Besides, if he were to tell them he was waiting for something greater, he would only be making a fool of himself. Before anyone could say a single word, Cain's eyes grew sharp and through the AI chip module, he sent a message to every single one of the patriarchs of the Deus Behemoth Empire, except for that of the Umbra clan. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 588, Unveiling the Truth. Confusion appeared in the minds of the patriarchs as they received a file. Cain had shocked them so much that all of them were overwhelmed by curiosity, and despite the shocking events and the many questions in their minds, they could not wait and opened the file, and immediately their eyes widened. The message contained several video files that depicted many of the events that happened inside the astral bloodline realm. That included the initial battle when the Umbra clan ambushed them, followed by the appearance of the Soul King using Nakuo as a battle vessel, and how Cain was forced to run and chase by the Soul King, Robber, and Talon. There was also clear evidence of the state of the warriors of the Kraken clan, making it obvious to everybody they were nothing more than puppets under the control of the Soul King. The events inside the mind Cosmos chamber were omitted, but everyone saw how Cain returned to the astral bloodline chamber. He did not show the battle, but some pictures depicted the fate of the warriors of the Umbra clan and Kraken clan. Gawkin Kraken shouted with rage as he focused on Cain, and his entire body trembled due to the overwhelming emotions flooding his mind and soul. He had just seen the corpses of all the Kraken clan's younger generation members that entered the astral bloodline realm, and it was clear who was responsible. Of course, the patriarch of the Kraken clan also saw the Soul King using Nakuo's body as a battle vessel, and the control this one had over the members of the Kraken clan. But one thing did not erase the other, not to mention that Robert was the man's grandson, so the pain he felt right now was overwhelming. Despite the immense rage and emotional distress, the patriarch of the Kraken clan showed great control, as he only shouted toward Cain but did not make a move. Cain focused on the patriarch of the Kraken clan, and his eyes were sharp as he focused on this one. His eyes glowed with red light as he stared at the man with a fearless expression.
If you want to blame someone, blame your clan's corruption, allowing someone like Norquo to make dealings with a Dark King and bringing this one into the astral bloodline realm. Or even better, blame the man who put his clan at the command of the Soul King, knowing what it would mean to yours. After all, no matter how strong the Soul King was, I doubt he was able to overcome Robert and the other 8 without help.
Shock appeared in the people who heard those words. Only the patriarchs had obtained Cain's file, so they did not know what was happening, but anything related to a Dark King could only mean catastrophe. Of everyone, the one whose shock was the greatest by far upon hearing the name of the Soul King was none other than Taran Umbra, the patriarch of the Umbra clan and the only one of the patriarchs who did not receive Cain's file. The man did not know what was happening, but upon hearing the name of the Soul King, he knew things were not good and saw how all the patriarchs focused on him, with Gokhan Kraken's eyes practically spouting rage and killing intent.
Are the humans' words true?
The patriarch of the Kraken clan shouted with pure rage as he turned his hatred toward the patriarch of the Umbra clan. Even amidst his rage, he was able to analyze Cain's words, and they were right. The Soul King was powerful, but his strength was far from enough to subdue Robert and the other 8 geniuses of the Kraken clan alone, so someone must have helped him, and that could not be anyone else but Talon and the rest of the warriors from the Umbra clan. Taran Umbra felt immense pressure, and his heart was beating like crazy, but he was an old man thousands of years old, and knew how to twist the truth.
I do not know what you are all talking about, and I refuse to answer baseless accusations without evidence, especially from a foreigner.
Instead of trying to defend himself, Taran chose to feign ignorance, while at the same time discrediting any information Cain was offering and making sure his condition, as a member of a different race, was taken into the spotlight. Cain's eyes were cold as he saw the tactic of the man and how the animosity and inquisitive stares in the patriarchs began to weaken upon hearing those words. He had to admit that the man was cunning, but it was not like he came unprepared.
I am accusing you of being a traitor, aligning with the Soul King. Here is all the information that I got from your warrior's computer rings.
He once again used the AI chip module, this time sending the information to the patriarch of the Umbra clan, so this one could not feign ignorance about the charges against him. Taran Umbra saw the file that arrived at his computer ring, and with his cognitive abilities, he was able to go through everything in a matter of seconds. Immediately his eyes narrowed as the file not only had video depicting everything that happened inside the astral bloodline realm, but also records of the communications between Talon and several obscure figures. Although Talon made great efforts to hide it, the AI chip module was able to decode all the information and easily find out the conspiracy between this one, the Soul King, and several higher-ups of the Umbra clan. The evidence was incredibly damning, but even in those conditions, Taran was able to maintain a composed expression, and he glanced at Cain with disdain.
Puny human, you have clearly shown great hacking skills by infiltrating the computer rings of the warriors of my Umbra clan. Who is to say that you did not manufacture all this to hide the fact you killed my people, and that of the Kraken clan only to hide the crimes of the Solis clan and Zanginis clan? After all, everybody knows the greedy nature of your race.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 589, Unveiling the Truth EI. Once again, Taran showed great scheming abilities as he deflected the topic, pushing back to Cain, and this time, putting him in the role of the cunning and greedy evil human. Cain's eyes remained cold as he stared at Taran, but he felt how the attention of the patriarchs of the 10 great bloodlines was turning to him, while their inquisitive gaze at Taran was growing weaker. Just as that happened, 2 figures appeared to the right and left of Cain. They were none other than Lord Kabuto and Lord Zanginis. The 2 old men stood next to the Godslayer human as unsurpassable mountains, their eyes focused on Taran. Taran's smile froze as he felt the eyes of the patriarchs of the Zanginis clan and Solis clan, but he could not back down and needed to hit the iron when it was hot if he wanted to get over this predicament.
Kabuto and Zuko, I am not saying that you were part of whatever scheme the greedy human did, but you should question your people and find out the truth. Remember who your people are and where your loyalty and faith should reside.
Once again, Terran tried to play the racial card, pushing the hearts of the patriarchs toward the Deus Behemoth Empire and away from Cain, but those words had no effect on the duo.
HMPH, I trust this boy just as I trust a son, and I definitely trust him more than a cunning piece of trash like you.
Lord Zangiani's voice was cold, his eyes sharp as he stared at Terran.
For me, it's simpler. If my son says you are a traitor, then you are a fucking traitor, and I will have your head.
Lord Kabuto's response was much more brutal and colder than Lord Zangiani's, and the old man seemed ready to jump toward Terran and rip him to pieces. Terran was shocked by the attitude of the two old men and could not help but feel at a loss, as he did not know how to react when facing two people who simply did not act according to reason.
Stop.
However, before a battle could start, Cain raised his hand and stopped the two old men. While he wanted to get rid of the Umbra clan's upper echelon, there was a right and a wrong way to do it. He wanted it to be clean, and for that, he needed the support of the entire Deus Behemoth Empire. Cain took a step forward and faced Terran with calmness before softly nodding.
You are right, all the information I have shown until now can be manufactured, but you are sorely mistaken if you believe that is all I have.
Terran could not help but clench his fists as he saw Cain's eyes and felt that something was wrong. A flash of killing intent appeared in his eyes as he wanted to shut the young human down, but trying to do that while this one was flanked by Zuko and Kabuto was impossible.
Emperor, I hope you can stop this, as those accusations are already putting a great stain on my clan's honor, and I refuse to hear anything else. I expect you to be the voice of reason and put an end to this charade.
Since killing Cain was not possible, Terran turned to Ian, hoping he would act and finish everything. As long as things cooled down, he could always twist things to his favor and make sure the truth never came to light. Eon's eyes narrowed as he heard the words of Terran. He knew that something was wrong, but while the file Cain delivered was incriminating, there was truth in the words that it could be fake. However, before Ian Volcano could come to a decision, Cain also turned to him.
Venerable Emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire, I understand that there is a lot on your mind right now, but I would like to ask you a question.
Ian's eyes narrowed as he saw the calm expression on Cain's face. He knew that saying yes would mean he was in some sense siding with the young human, but he was not someone who would let lies flourish just to hide his insecurities or due to worrying about the opinion of others.
Go ahead.
Terran clenched his teeth when he saw how Ian decided to hear Cain's words, and while he wanted to intervene, if he were to do it, it would be the same as disrespecting the entire Deus Behemoth Empire. Cain glanced at Terran with coldness, but did not waste time and adopted a respectful stance as he spoke.
According to the records of your past feats, you once faced the Soul King. Could you tell me more about it?
Ian did not know where Cain wanted to arrive, but he answered the question of the young man.
I indeed faced the Soul King once, hundreds of years ago, when we were both just early Divine Ascension Masters. It was an extremely dangerous battle, and I nearly lost my life. I faced his soul invasion spells, but managed to force him to escape once my fists destroyed most of his internal organs.
Cain immediately smiled as he heard that, since if Ian had endured the soul invasion spells from the Soul King, then everything was over for the Umbra clan. He waved his hand, and a small marble with countless runes appeared.
I wonder if you could tell me to whom the soul force in this treasure belongs.
The Soul King had used that marble to contain his soul force for hundreds of years, and even if it was gone, that did not mean the soul aura imprinted for centuries would fade from one day to the other. The marble flew on its own toward Ian, who immediately marveled at the complexity of the runes in it. However, his eyes focused, and he sent his ego wave into the marble. Eon's eyes widened as a sense of shock appeared before a burst of killing intent emerged to the point that the air began to set ablaze as he turned toward Terran and the group from the Umbra clan.
This is the soul aura of the Soul King.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 590. Facing a peak early divine ascension master, I.
This is the soul aura of the Soul King.
As soon as those words came from Ian's mouth, all the patriarchs turned toward Taryn with shock, accompanied by coldness and killing intent. There was no way to feign the Soul King's soul aura, and while it might not be enough to give an instant verdict, it was more than enough to capture Taryn and the others and carry on a proper investigation. Taryn began to tremble as he could not believe that Cain would get his hands on a treasure carrying the soul aura of the Soul King. He had a way to counter any other form of evidence, but how could he explain the presence of a Dark King's soul force in the astral bloodline realm? As for trying to say that the Soul King worked with Cain, Taryn knew that no one would believe that, as it was already known by all just how much the organization wanted to kill the young man, to the point of having sent the Blood King after him less than 2 years ago. By now, there was no one who did not believe to some degree that Talon and the rest of the Umbra clan's younger generation had worked under the command of the Soul King inside the astral bloodline realm. Although Taryn could try to say those members of the younger generation were working alone, that would not stop the Empire from conducting a thorough investigation, and who knew what more they could unveil. I need to escape. Just as that thought appeared in Taryn's mind, he felt 9 extremely powerful ego waves focused on his every move, to the point that if he were to take a step, they would jump at him like ravenous beasts and rip him to pieces. Although Taryn called himself a true Titan, he was at the very bottom of that tier and was considered the weakest of the patriarchs of the Jews' behemoth empire. Therefore, trying to face all 9 would be akin to suicide. The other 9 patriarchs were not happy at all with the Umbra clan right now, and there were some like Gawkin Kraken doing all they could to stop themselves from lunging toward Taryn and ripping him to pieces. In the end, Taryn did not dare to make a move, and neither did the middle Divine Ascension Master to his right, but the same could not be said about the early Divine Ascension Master on his left. Upon feeling the combined pressure of all the patriarchs, along with that of the other Divine Ascension Masters, the early Divine Ascension Master of the Umbra clan was not able to endure, and made his astral wave explode before flying away with all his speed.
Roman, you bastard!
Taryn could not help but shout as he saw the action of Roman, the early Divine Ascension Master. The behavior of the man only made them seem even more guilty. The patriarchs were solely focused on Taryn. The man was a master of assassination skills, so he could hide very well. Killing him would not be hard, but they wanted to capture him alive, so they could not break focus. Of course, neither could they allow an early Divine Ascension Master suspected of treason to escape, so the patriarchs were ready to command some of the Core Elders to go after Roman.
I will do it.
However, before any of the Core Elders could make a move, Cain shouted, and he flashed like a comet after Roman.
Cain!
Lord Kabuto shouted as he saw that Cain had gone after Roman. Even if the young man was powerful, Roman was a peak early Divine Ascension Master who mastered assassination skills. Yet, before Lord Kabuto could say another word, his eyes widened as he saw that the speed at which Cain moved was faster than that of Roman. It was not only Lord Kabuto who was shocked. All the other patriarchs were surprised to see the overwhelming speed that Cain managed to achieve.
Great-grandfather, please do not worry. An early Divine Ascension Master is no threat to the Sun Avatar. That is right, Lord Kabuto. Colonel Lorifer is incredibly powerful. There is no need to worry.
Zamuel and Law immediately spoke as they saw the worry in Lord Kabuto, and there were shining smiles full of confidence as they looked toward Cain in the distance. Eon, Lord Kabuto, Lord Zanguines, and the rest of the patriarchs kept their ego wave on Taryn and the middle Divine Ascension Master of the Umbra clan, but their eyes also focused on Cain. Cain had triggered third gear and blood wings combined with spatial phase, achieving a speed that allowed him to quickly reduce the distance between him and Roman. Roman glanced back, and his eyes widened as he saw how Cain was flying after him. The man's heart was full of killing intent toward the young human, but he knew that any delay could be lethal, so he clenched his teeth as shadows covered his figure, and the next second he vanished. Cain saw how Roman vanished and realized that even his ego wave could not perceive the man's presence, but he only sneered. He did not even bother to command the AI chip module To track the man, since he was in a state of elemental resonance, he could feel the disturbance in the air.
Boom.
The astral wave and essence wave of Cain exploded as he appeared 200 meters southwest of his position. His right fist glowed with sun phos, but that was not all, as a vortex of space phos and blood energy formed in it. The patriarchs and all the other Deus behemoths, seeing Cain from the distance, were shocked to see the young man seemingly combine the power of the laws and physical might in his fists, and their shock only grew as the next second he hit the air beneath him, and a scream echoed.
Oh,
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 591, 591. Facing a peak early divine ascension master,
oh,
Roman's figure appeared the next second, and he could not help but scream in pain as that punch landed on his back. And the next second, a blast of blood energy and space phos with a golden caw drove him into the ground. A massive explosion echoed the next second as the blast carried Roman into the ground, leaving all those who saw it full of awe and wonder. That strike was not any weaker than the power of a middle divine ascension master, yet it came from a late wave king. Even if Cain had dual cultivated the astral rebirth path of power and essence evolution path to power, his strength was simply too overwhelming. The younger generation of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan could not help but smile at each other as they saw the expression on everybody's faces. They were glad to see that shock in other people other than their own. However, everybody soon focused again as they saw Cain descending to the ground, while Roman rose from the crater that the blast generated. Roman's body was covered in deep wounds, and it was easy to see the skin and muscles on his back were shredded to pieces. He was an early divine ascension astral cultivator, and his body should have overwhelming defensive power. However, to hide his presence, he was also forced to hide his astral wave, which meant that when Cain struck him, he did not have his wave cloak active, and nothing reinforced his body's defenses.
You disgusting human.
Cain's face was calm, and there was neither coldness nor killing intent in his eyes. Before entering the astral bloodline realm, an early divine ascension master was an enemy against whom he would have to use everything he had only to get a chance at a decent fight, but now they were nothing special.
Surrender, confess all you know about the dealings between the Umbra clan and the Soul King, and I will do my best to avoid your execution. You will spend the rest of your life in a dungeon, but you will still be alive. Who do you think you are to speak to me like that?
Roman's rage exploded as he heard Cain's words, and he clenched his teeth and ignored the pain as he made his astral wave explode. His entire body was covered in shadow, to the point he became a humanoid shadow, and that was just the start as a dozen clones emerged from him.
Shadow clone onslaught.
Cain saw how a dozen clones marched at him and could feel how all of them had true battle power and could harm him. Still, he only shook his head as his perception immediately showed him the real Roman.
You are full of openings.
Just as the shadow clones were 10 meters away from Cain and were about to cut him to pieces, his hand took the form of a blade that exploded with the power of space phos and blood energy.
Quantum dive.
Cain flashed forward at a shocking speed, avoiding the attacks, and appeared 500 meters forward, with his hand piercing the chest of Roman. The next second, all shadow clones trembled before vanishing.
Puak.
Roman vomited a mouthful of blood, and there was utter agony on his face as Cain's hand pierced his chest, grabbing his heart. He did not dare to make a single move as the young man only needed to squeeze to end his life.
Please don't kill me.
Cain saw the pleading light in the eyes of Roman and did not say a word before his eyes glowed with red light. Immediately after that, Cain's essence wave set ablaze, scorching the early divine ascension master's rebirth hot.
Oh,
Roman began to scream in agony as the flames scorched his rebirth hot. The intensity of the flames was not so much as to kill him, but intense enough to cause irreparable damage to the sacred organ. After 10 seconds, Cain took out his hand from Roman's chest, and the man fell to the ground with eyes full of despair as he realized his cultivation had been crippled. The Deus Behemoth did not even have the strength to kill himself at this point. Cain showed no mercy as he grabbed Roman by the neck before rising to the sky and flying back to the statues where all the patriarchs were looking at him with eyes full of wonder and disbelief. His power and tactics were something even the mighty true titans of the Deus Behemoth Empire found incredibly impressive, and his ruthless nature was terrifying. Cain noticed the shock in the eyes of everybody present and knew the effect his cultivation and power would have on others. But right now, there was a more pressing matter.
Are any of the present experts in soul-reading abilities?
When the patriarchs heard that, they could not help but once again improve their impression of the young man. Using soul reading on an individual would lead to significant damage to their cultivation and life force, so they could not do it in people just because they were suspects of a crime. However, Roman was already on the verge of death, so it made no difference if he died now or a few hours later. Cain could have neutralized the man but chose to cripple him, so no one could have any objection to his plan, and there was nothing to say about his method after all. Everybody saw how Roman attacked full of killing intent. Although his strategy was good, the patriarchs could only shake their heads as they saw the young man glancing at them. All of them followed the astral rebirth path of power, and none of them were proficient in spirit abilities, much less soul reading. Terran's eyes were full of terror as he saw that they had captured Roman and planned to read the soul of this one, but he relaxed upon seeing that no one could. Unfortunately for the man, that calm did not last long.
In that case, I will do it.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 592, A Hybrid.
In that case, I will do it.
Under the amazed gaze of the patriarchs, Cain's forehead split open, revealing a third eye with a sharp row of teeth inside the eyelids that unleashed an abominable devouring force. Cain had offered the chance for someone else to read the mind of Roman, since that way he would not be the only one accusing the Umbra clan. But since there was no one capable of doing it, he carried on and used Gluttony's eyes on the early Divine Ascension Master. He grabbed Roman by the neck and forced eye contact, triggering a clash of willpower. Roman was a third realm Ascension Master, but despair had already overwhelmed his mind, so as he faced Cain's willpower, it did not take long for it to shatter. Under everybody's shocked and awed eyes, tendrils emerged from Cain's third eye, piercing into Roman's brain and heart, extracting his ego and soul force before starting to ravenously devour it. The process was ghastly and lasted nearly 2 hours, but no one made a sound, and everybody waited until Cain opened his eyes again and the third monstrous eye vanished. Cain's cognitive abilities were superb, but even he would have trouble computing thousands of years of memories. Luckily, he had the AI chip module, which could work much faster than him, providing him with the most important details. It did not take long for the absolute life form system to give him the information he needed for this process, and as he saw it, his eyes widened.
The Soul King is a member of the Umbra clan.
Shock appeared in the eyes of Ian and the rest of the patriarchs as they heard Cain's words. The realization that one of the great figures of the underworld of Gaia came from the Deus Behemoth Empire was stunning.
So the Soul King is a Deus Behemoth.
A solemn expression appeared on Ian as he posed that question. His trust in the young human had grown to the point that he believed Cain's words, even if this one revealed no evidence. Of course, the fact that there was a relationship between the Soul King and the Umbra clan that went back ages, making sense, also mattered in the belief of the Emperor. Cain frowned as he heard that question and stood in silence for a moment before softly shaking his head.
Not quite. The Soul King is the son of the previous patriarch of the Umbra clan and a slave from another race.
Cain made a pause at this point and gazed at the Emperor and the other patriarchs with a complicated expression before carrying on.
His father was a Deus Behemoth, but his mother was a member of the Atrox Immortus race.
A deafening silence spread across the place as Ian and the others heard those words. A hybrid between the races was not something that was truly taboo, and while some looked down on them, most did not care. Of course, that was when the hybrid came between two races of the same side as Godslayer human and Deus behemoth, but when this one came from a mixture with the dark races, everything changed. Not only was the act of mating with a member of the dark races heavily frowned upon and considered a vicious and disgusting act, but any child coming from such a relationship was considered a taboo abomination and was prohibited under the code and rules of all 6 empires. The reason for such a stand was not only out of hatred, but also pity, as a child coming from such a background would live a life of absolute despair, incapable of truly assimilating with any of the 6 great clans.
Lies, they are all lies. My older brother would never do such a thing.
Taran was not able to contain himself as he shouted full of rage. While for some it might seem he was protecting his family, the patriarchs had already lost any trust in him, and they could see the desperation in his face. Cain, on the other hand, stared at Taran with an expression of disdain and disgust.
I am surprised to see you so protective, being that you plotted with the Soul King against your dear brother, taking this one out so you could rise to the patriarch position.
Taran's eyes widened as he heard those words, and feelings of desperation and shock just kept growing stronger. But he clenched his teeth and his eyes burst with a grey light.
That is a lie. Had I done something so heinous, there was no way I would have shared that knowledge with Roman. You are just making things up.
This time the words of Taran made sense, and while it did not change the distrust the patriarchs had, many of them glanced at Cain, wondering just how much they could trust his words. Cain could see those gazes, but he did not grow worried and simply smiled.
You were indeed secretive, and did not share that plot with anyone, but I am not merely reading the experiences of Roman. I am also making deductions based on the information that is presented to me. After all, I am an army colonel and investigative skills are a core of our military training.
Ian and the patriarchs softly nodded as they heard those words. Cain was not a mindless machine that could only repeat information, and he indeed had the ability to process information and pick up clues from it.
Of course, I cannot expect everybody to blindly believe my words, and luckily there is no need for that since there is someone who would be able to confirm my words, your dear older brother whose legacy you are so eager to protect.
As soon as Taran heard those words, his entire face grew pale. The dread and shock were so great that he was not able to hide the immense distress that those words generated in him.
Oh, so I was right.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 593, Establishing Order I.
Oh, so I was right.
Cain smiled, not concealing his satisfaction. He had been testing the waters with his accusations, but it seemed he had struck a nerve. Immediately, he noticed the loathing and despair in Taran's eyes, but instead of dwelling on it, he turned toward Ian, who was looking at him with an inquisitive gaze.
I know that the previous patriarch of the Umbra clan, Auron Umbra, vanished nearly 200 years ago, and many believe he is dead, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It appears that after defeating Auron, the Soul King and Taran kept him alive, perhaps to torture him or for some other purpose.
Cain paused, allowing the patriarchs to process the information before continuing.
The Umbra clan has a secret dungeon hidden from the Empire, located beneath a massive mountain range on the periphery of the Bahamut sector. That place was actually instituted by Auron. The man used it to cage his enemies, and on the lowest floor he had slaves from other races that he used to satisfy his twisted desires. After Taran's ascension to the position of patriarch, the dungeon remained active, but the lowest floor was much more restrictive, and only he and another hidden figure visited it every few years. If my guess is correct, the hidden figure was the Soul King, and the one we will find in the deepest level of the dungeon is none other than Auron Umbra.
Taran's shock and despair reached its peak as he heard Cain's words. He felt he was drowning deeper and deeper, and nothing he could do would raise him from the waters. It was at this point that a frenzied expression appeared on his face, and he focused on his computer ring.
Don't you dare!
Ian shouted as he sensed Taran's computer ring acting, but he was too late, and a message emerged. Just as the emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire was about to strike with ferocity, he heard Kane's voice.
There is no need to worry. I have jammed all signals from the computer rings present. It seems that he sent a self-destruction signal to the Umbra secret dungeon, but I blocked it. Before we carry on, I think we should restrict the traitors.
Kane was calm, yet his words carried a defining tone for Taryn and the Middle Divine Ascension woman from the Umbra clan. He called them traitors, and by the looks on the rest of the Patriarchs' faces, they took his words as a verdict.
Wait, please allow me.
Fear brought Taryn's sanity back, and just as he attempted to speak, he felt a sharp pain in his back and saw a sword pierce his chest. The one who attacked was a woman with a fierce appearance, wolf ears, and capable of blending with space flawlessly to the point she took the true Titan by surprise. Taryn wanted to react, but the damage was too severe, and Sod Foss flooded his body, sealing his energy. The Patriarch of the Fenrir clan was not the strongest, but her mastery over space was superb, and her sword skills were even better as she managed to sever Taryn's spine. She was careful enough not to touch the man's heart, crippling him yet keeping him alive. The Middle Divine Ascension cultivator saw how Taryn was neutralized, but she did not have time to worry about others as a colossal man appeared in front of her, and grabbed her head with such overwhelming force and gravitational pressure that she could do nothing but pass out.
HMPH pathetic.
The Patriarch of the Gravitas clan sneered as he sealed the mind of the warrior of the Umbra clan before letting this one fall to the ground. Kane and the other Patriarchs did not make a move, but they pushed their perception and focus to the limit, making sure everything would go flawlessly. Eon's eyes were cold as he saw the state of Taryn and the other women, without a single shred of pity or mercy in his eyes. He would have killed the duo, if not because they were more useful alive, at least until they could extract all the information from their minds. After seeing the duo neutralized, Ian took a deep breath, and his aura began to rise higher and higher, drawing the attention of everybody present. Lord Kabuto, Lord Zanguines, and all the other Patriarchs adopted solemn expressions as they focused on Ian, and it was clear to them that the man was ready to put order and fulfill his role as the Emperor. Once Ian opened his eyes, everybody adopted a respectful and submissive stance, ready to follow his command.
Xena Falcon, bring the duo to the Imperial prison. Then take control of the Imperial army in Amazon and besiege the Umbra clan's sacred home, cutting all communication with the outside world. All members of the Umbra clan must surrender themselves and wait for further notice. Any form of rebellion will be considered treason, and they will be executed on the spot.
The Patriarchs of the Fenrir clan and Gravitas clan nodded, and without delay, they grabbed Taryn and the Middle Divine Ascension women before flashing into the distance. The warriors of the Volcano clan behind Ian also bowed toward the Emperor before rising into the sky and following Xena and Falcon. After that, Ian turned toward Gawkin, and a complicated expression appeared on his face, but soon sharpness and determination emerged.
Gorkin, every member of the Kraken clan above the Wave King rank, must report back to your sacred home and remain there until further notice. I expect a thorough investigation of how deeply the corruption of the Soul King infected your clan.
The Patriarch of the Kraken clan could not help but sigh as he heard Ian's words. His entire clan was practically under house arrest, and that included him. Still, the fact that Ian allowed him to carry out the investigation showed he was not a suspect of treason, at least not for now.
Yes, your Imperial Majesty.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 594, Establishing Order, I.
Yes, your Imperial Majesty.
Gawkin bowed toward the Emperor before turning toward Kane. He stared at the young man, and although it seemed he wanted to say something, in the end, he only shook his head and left in silence along with his entourage. Kane watched Gawkin flying away and could feel the conflict within the man's heart. The Patriarch understood that the Soul King was the true culprit behind everything that happened, but that did not erase the fact that the blood of the younger generation of his clan was on Kane's hands. Although Kane was not someone to let loose ends, that did not mean he was also going to kill everybody who had conflicted feelings about him. Besides, it was not like he could defeat a true Titan, at least not yet. Eon watched Gawkin leave before turning to the rest of the patriarchs and focusing on Cain for a moment.
Kabuto, Zuko, and Kane, you three will remain here. The rest head to your respective domains and put everything in order, preparing your armies for immediate mobilization if needed.
The patriarchs of the Otic clan, Ursa clan, and Aeolus clan bowed to Ian before rising into the sky and flying away along with their people. The warriors of the Solis clan and Zanginis clan bowed to their patriarch and the emperor before rising to the sky and leaving as well. There were only 4 people left: Emperor Ian, Lord Kabuto, Lord Zanginis, and Cain. Now that everybody was gone, Ian focused on Cain before speaking.
Son Avatar of the Solis clan, you will lead me, Kabuto, and Zuko to the underground dungeon of the Umbra clan.
Ian's voice carried a profound tone, and the fact he referred to Cain by his identity as part of the Solis clan meant he recognized this one as a member of the Deus Behemoth Empire. And that was not all. As while Ian only needed Cain, he made sure to bring Zuko and Kabuto along, improving the stance of the young man. Cain stared at the Emperor for a moment, clasped his hands, and performed a deep bow.
As you command, Your Imperial Highness.
Lord Kabuto and Lord Zanginis smiled as they saw the connection between Cain and the Deus Behemoth Empire strengthening, and the status and background of this one rising beyond just his 2 clans. The Fa did not waste time, and they rose to the sky, with the Emperor and the Patriarchs following after Cain as they left Amazon and headed to the periphery of the Bahamut sector. Although Ian, Kabuto, and Zuko did not use their full speed since they had to follow Cain, they did not have to contain much either, as the young man was able to achieve a truly incredible speed thanks to his astral waves abilities and mastery over the laws of space and wind. Less than 30 minutes later, Cain's eyes grew sharp as he focused on a lone mountain range in the distance.
That is the place.
Ian, Kabuto, and Zuko focused on the mountain range as they heard Cain's words, and their eyes began to glow. They were ready to unleash their ego waves, but the young man immediately intercepted them.
Please do not be rash. There are several contingency plans in that dungeon, and if we make a mistake, the place is prepared to blow itself up, and there will be nothing we can do to stop it.
The Emperor and the 2 patriarchs froze as they heard those words. Although the culpability of the Umbra clan was already sealed, they wanted to obtain as much proof as possible, and also rescue all the people inside the dungeon if they could.
I assume you have a way to take care of those defensive mechanisms.
Ian turned toward Cain, and the expression on his face made it clear he was sure that the young man could handle that problem. It was subtle, but instinctively, the Emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire began to see in the young human someone capable of fixing all his problems. Cain only smiled as he nodded, and the next second his AI chip module came into action, with the pseudo-multidimensional force field and the sub-quantum hacking tools fusing into an invisible and imperceptible force field that flooded into the dimension and began to deactivate all traps and failsafes in place. The power of Ian's perception was overwhelming, which was why he was so surprised to feel a unique force field coming from Cain. It was extremely subtle, and if he had not been paying attention, he would not have detected it.
Let's go, we can enter. I already deactivated all traps. There are some people inside guarding the place, but they are only Wave King and 1 Apotheosis Master.
Ian and the Patriarchs did not even bother to quantify the god in the place, since even if Divine Ascension Masters were present, they could instantly overwhelm them. Since there was no need to contain themselves anymore, the trio unleashed their ego wave. As they sent their willpower into the mountain, their eyes soon widened as they detected a place dozens of thousands of meters underground, hidden with all sorts of cloaking formations. A cold light appeared in Ian's eyes as he pointed his index finger at the mountain range, and the next second, a tiny beam of energy was shot. Cain's eyes widened as he saw how that beam of energy, less than a finger wide, evaporated the mountain range and generated a massive crater that blasted open the ceiling of the Umbra clan's secret dungeon. Amazing! Cain couldn't help but gaze at Ian with awe, as that attack not only had overwhelming destructive power, but the energy control over it was sublime. Despite generating an explosion, there were no shockwaves, and the destruction was limited to the surface of the secret dungeon, not harming the inside or the people in it. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 595, Auron Umbra. Ian kept his eyes focused on the dungeon, but he noticed Kane's gaze and a silent smile appeared on his face. That attack took every single ounce of granular control he had over his energy, but he wanted to display his power, showing the young man the might of an emperor. Although he kept a cold head and did not show on the outside, the level of talent the young man displayed had shocked Emperor Ian to the core. There was no doubt in his mind that Kane would rise to the highest peak of ether, and before that, he wanted to display his might and generate a lasting impression.
Let's go.
After ensuring his display of strength had the desired effect, Ian did not delay further and led the group into the secret dungeon. Kane's eyes soon regained his focus, and as he turned to the dungeon, he observed its vastness, with metal walls and hundreds of floating cages inside, each containing a pitiful individual who seemed to be on their last leg. Ion, Zuko, Kabuto, and Kane descended into the secret dungeon, and immediately drew the attention of a dozen warriors from the Umbra clan.
Impossible, this cannot be happening.
The strongest of the group couldn't help but shout in shock and dread as they saw the emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire descending with overwhelming pressure. These people were unable to do anything before Kane's eyes glowed, and their eyes immediately lost focus. When Ian, Zuko, and Kabuto saw this, they turned toward Kane with complicated expressions. The young man just kept revealing more and more incredible abilities. Kane being able to instantly hypnotize an Apotheosis Realm Master meant he was a very powerful Saint Hypnosis Master. Kane did not make a fuss of his Hypnosis Master abilities, as for him, being able to hypnotize a weak Apotheosis Realm Cultivator was nothing much. It would have been easier to kill all the members of the Umbra clan present, but they might have some knowledge he could need, which was why he left them alive. It did not take long for the Fa to descend to the ground of the underground dungeon, and as they looked around and focused on the cages, they could see that they contained people from different clans, and many belonged to the 10 great bloodlines. Ion, Kabuto, and Zuko's eyes burst with rage and killing intent as they saw people of their clans that they believed had gone missing or dead in this place. They were so weak and malnourished that even after all the ruckus they had created, none raised their heads and kept lying on the floor of their cells. Kane did not say a word, nor did he feel anything about these people. He was a master of Oda, so unless he knew some of the people in those cages, he felt nothing for them. Pity was not a sentiment someone who followed Oda could experience, at least not in the way normal people could. Of course, Kane did not disturb the trio who seemed ready to burst with righteous fire, and instead focused on the teleportation matrix on the floor as the AI chip module began to interact with it, and after a few seconds, it began to glow.
It will lead us to a separate dimension whose core is buried 100,000 kilometers underground. I assume that is the place we will see Auron Umbra.
Ian, Kabuto, and Zuko felt the space energy in the formation and did not doubt Kane's words, but they did not feel right leaving all the people in those cages. The sense of racial justice and protection was strong in the group.
Don't worry about them. The guards will bring them out of their cages and take off their chains and energy blockers. By the time we come back, they should be all ready to leave.
Kane's eyes glowed as he spoke those words, and the gods of the Umbra clan began to move, going from cage to cage, opening them, and taking the people out. Smiles appeared on the faces of the trio as they saw the gods taking care of their prisoners, and they turned toward Kane with appreciation before getting into the formation. The next second, the teleportation formation glowed with a blinding light, and the Fa vanished from the upper section of the secret dungeon of the Umbra clan. The mind of the Fa was so strong that such short teleportation was not able to affect their senses. They found themselves in a small black room, and their eyes immediately focused on the individual kneeling in the middle. It was a naked member of the Umbra clan with vicious wounds all over his body. His legs had spikes that nailed him to the ground, while chains descended from the ceiling and pierced his arms, making sure he would not fall.
You came back for more, bastard.
The man was looking to the ground, so he did not notice the newcomers and most likely believed he was speaking to the person who came every certain time to torment him.
Oron,
When the man heard Ian's voice, his entire body trembled, and he slowly raised his head. The skin on his face was scotched to the point that the bone was visible, and one of his eyes had been gouged out, but that did not erase the sense of shock in his face upon seeing that the people that arrived were the emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire and the patriarchs of the Solis clan and Zanginis clan. Oron began to laugh upon seeing Ian, Kabuto, and Zuko, and tears began to fall from his only good eye. In that laughter, there was a sense of immense resilience. Despite hundreds of years of agony, Oron was able to maintain his sanity, and as he saw the trio, he believed all that pain was finally ending. His maddening laughter lasted nearly a minute before a sharp light appeared in his eye. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 596, Twisting History.
Your Imperial Highness must help me. My treacherous brother and the Soul King, my archenemy, imprisoned me in their secret dungeon. Please free me from these chains so we can bring justice in the name of the Deus Behemoth Empire.
Kane's eyes narrowed, reflecting a mix of respect and awe as he listened to the man's plea. Despite years of torture and the thrill of potential freedom, the man's focus and cunning remained unbroken. Oron immediately blamed the Umbra secret dungeon on his brother and referred to the Soul King as his archenemy and nothing more. So sly. Unfortunately for the man, he had already served his purpose in Kane's plan, and keeping him alive would only make things more problematic. Some might think that Oron would be full of gratitude toward Kane, as it was he who unveiled the relationship between the Umbra clan and the Soul King. Yet, from what Kane learned from Roman's memories, Oron would be incapable of that. The xenophobia of the former patriarch of the Umbra clan ran so deep that he would ignore Kane's involvement in his rescue, and instead focus on the damage this one did to his clan. Before Ian, Zuko, and Kabuto could respond to Oron's plea, Kane stepped forward and focused on the old man.
You are really good with words, but please don't play the role of the innocent victim, since it makes me want to puke.
It was only at this point that Oron focused on Kane. He had noticed the young man, but upon realizing this one was not a member of the Deus Behemoth race, he instinctively ignored him. Kane only smiled as he felt the loath and disgust in Oron's eyes and continued speaking.
Allow me to make some arrangements for your colourful worlds. Your brother and your bastard son chained you in this dungeon, where you once abused women and men from the dark races.
A flash of realization appeared in Ian and the Patriarch's eyes. They were momentarily moved by Oron's pitiful state, but Kane's words reminded them that this dungeon was Oron's creation. This unique dimension full of torture equipment was his personal hell, where he did unspeakable things to men and women. The pity in the trio's eyes faded, replaced by coldness, remembering that Oron was not just a twisted individual who abused members of the dark races and fathered a child with one, but had also secretly imprisoned people from across the Empire, including those from their clans. Oron's eyes widened upon hearing Kane's accusations, and a silent killing light appeared in them. However, an even more intense feeling of distress assaulted him as he saw the coldness emerge in the eyes of Ian, Kabuto, and Zuko. He was fast and turned toward Kane with an expression full of indignation.
Human, how dare you accuse me of such heinous crimes, given my condition? This place was built by my brother long before his coup, and I only discovered it when they imprisoned me here.
Oron shouted at Kane with righteous rage before turning to Ian, Kabuto, and Zuko.
My friends, please free me. I will answer all your questions and help you uncover the truth once I am healed. We are all patriarchs of the 10 great bloodlines, and we should stand together as the pillars upon which the Deus Behemoth Empire has risen for thousands of years.
Complicated expressions appeared on the Emperor and the Patriarch's faces. While they were determined not to let the harm to their people go unpunished, they also had to consider the Empire's safety. The potential loss of the upper echelon of one of the 10 great bloodlines would significantly diminish the Empire's overall military power. Auron had indeed endured centuries of torment, which, in their eyes, was a form of punishment. As the trio considered their response, a small smile appeared on Auron's face, along with a flash of coldness he managed to conceal well. Kain observed the trio and understood their dilemma. They were the Empire's leaders and had to prioritize the greater good and safety of trillions, not just their personal feelings. However, he wasn't going to let Auron's desires dictate the outcome. His gaze wandered around the Black Room, focusing on the rusty torture equipment, and he realized these were ancient artifacts of centuries of age. They were older than the time Auron had stayed locked in this place, so they were used on others first.
The torture equipment in this place is very old. It's poetic justice that the Soul King used the same equipment you utilized to torture his mother on you.
Ian, Zuko, and Kabuto turned to Kain. Clearly, the young man wanted to share something, and they would hear him before making a decision. Surprise and confusion flickered in Auron's eyes as he noticed the trio's respect and reverence toward Kain. Auron couldn't understand or accept their behavior, given his view of other races as inferior. Kain walked until he stood right in front of Auron, noting the man's resilience.
I must admit you're formidable, and this experience only seems to have strengthened your willpower. It wouldn't be hard for you to regain control over the Umbra clan and return to your previous peak or even surpass it. However, I loathe your nature, and our coexistence within the Deus Behemoth Empire would become increasingly complicated, to the point where there could only be one of us.
Kain paused, allowing a cold smile to form on his face, signaling bad tidings for Auron.
Fortunately for me, the Soul King had already destroyed your internal organs, and your wounds were too severe for healing. We wanted to help you, but you were beyond salvation, and we did the only merciful thing and ended your suffering.
Shock filled Auron's eyes as he heard Kain's words. The young man wanted to twist history and make everybody believe he had perished in this place due to the actions of the Soul King. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 597, Deal I. The dread in Auron's eyes only increased as he saw the reactions of Ian, Zuko, and Kabuto. The patriarchs of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan stared at Auron for a moment before a coldness and killing intent emerged in their hearts. Since Auron would impede Kain's proper assimilation into the Deus Behemoth Empire, he had to be eliminated. The fact that they never got along with the man, and he was a criminal who imprisoned people from their clans, made the decision very straightforward. It only took one glance toward Zuko and Kabuto for Auron to realize the path the dupe had taken, clearly seeing they would choose the human over him.
Your Imperial Highness, please, you must stand for reason and justice.
Immediately, Auron turned toward Ian, and there was a flash of madness and fear in his heart. He had already resigned to his fate after hundreds of years of torture, but when he saw the trio, hope once again returned. Yet, it seemed that it was misplaced, and he would not be getting out of this place. Eon stared at Auron silently, a solemn expression appearing on his face as he glanced between the former patriarch of the Umbra clan and Kain.
Ah, so be it. Auron Umbra will be remembered as a great man who served the Empire honorably. He fell under the plot of his younger brother, Taran Umbra, and his archenemy, the Soul King. He was jailed in his brother's hidden prison and resisted for hundreds of years of torture as they sought to get secrets from him, but he stood strong. He perished this day, as I finished his agony and incinerated his corpse, granting him a proper burial worthy of a hero of the Deus Behemoth Empire.
Ian turned toward Zuko, Kabuto, and Kain, and the intent in his eyes was decisive and also ominous. He would side with the trio, but Auron Umbra would not go down as a devious man who fell to the hands of his bastard son, but as a hero and respected Deus Behemoth. Of course, there were a lot of people who heard about Auron's misdeeds during Kain's revelation in Amazon, but Ian was sure he could ensure their silence, as an order from the Emperor was not something they could defy. Although Zuko and Kabuto were not so happy to see a devious and disgusting man like Auron being considered a hero of the Empire for the ages, they were willing to compromise. While the Umbra clan would suffer greatly, it would not be exterminated, and it would be good for the young generations to have a figure to worship as they strive to regain their honor. Cain couldn't care less about public opinion. For all that mattered, Oron could be considered a divine god if they wanted, as long as the man perished. Oron's mind fell into madness as he realized they were practically discussing his epitaph in front of him and could not contain himself and shouted,
You bastard.
Yet before the old patriarch from the Umbra clan could finish his sentence, Cain struck his trachea with so much strength that it shattered, making the man twitch as he was no longer able to breathe. Of course, he could survive without oxygen as his foss provided all the energy his body needed. The Soul King had not crippled Oron's cultivation, as that would mean the man would have died within years. Instead, he incarcerated the man, and the same spikes and chains that nailed his body to the ground also sealed his energy and ego wave. Eon simply shook his head as he was in no mood to continue the charade, ready to shoot a blast of energy and kill Oron.
Please wait, I have a use for him.
Cain stopped the Emperor, and his eyes focused on Oron as they glowed with a red light, and a sense of voracious gluttony appeared in them. Oron had just stopped his body from twitching when he saw the sense of gluttony. The red light in those eyes made him feel like prey, and a sense of utter terror flooded his mind. Despite his ragged and wounded state, Oron Umbra was still a peak divine ascension master, so the amount of energy and vitality in his body was nothing short of overwhelming. If Cain could consume it, it might be just what he needed to push his body and energy pools to the peak Wave King and prepare himself for his first calamity and tribulation. Eon, Kabuto, and Zuko only had to look at Cain to feel the ravenous desire for consumption emanating from the young man's will, and understand the reason why he wanted Oron.
I cannot allow that. No matter what, Oron was once a patriarch of one of the 10 great bloodlines. I cannot just let him become a source of food.
Unfortunately for Cain, things were not so easy. He turned toward Ian and saw this one frowning, as he was not happy with his intent. He even noticed that Lord Kabuto and Lord Zanginis showed complicated expressions.
I assure you that my desire has nothing to do with his race or bloodline. I have eaten thousands of people from all races, with humans making up the bulk of it.
Cain thought that the trio's worry stemmed from the idea that he wanted to treat members of the Deus Behemoth race as animals, which was why he shared the truth. Yet, that did not change their expressions. Although Cain's intelligence and wisdom were off the charts, his sense of what was normal was very twisted. And eating people was indeed very, very weird. Seeing that his words did not have the desired effect, Cain's eyes narrowed as he spoke again to the Emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire.
Give him to me, and I will help you uproot most of the dark factions all across the Deus Behemoth Empire within a year.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 598. Deal It. Ian's eyes widened as he heard those words. If it were anyone else saying it, he would just take it as a boring joke or a bad attempt to impress him. But the young man in front of him was able to expose the connection between a Dark King from the organization and one of the 10 great bloodlines.
Do you intend to go from sector to sector looking for dark factions and kill them?
If Cain were to say yes to that, he would immediately discard the young man's words and kill Oron.
Of course not. That would take decades. Besides, while I am strong, there are dozens of figures more powerful in the Deus Behemoth Empire than me.
Upon hearing that, Ian's gaze softened and a small smile appeared on his face. He was pleased to see that despite his power and talent, Cain was able to keep an objective point of view and did not overestimate himself.
Then please elaborate.
Ian spoke, and his voice carried a sense of patience and intrigue. Kabuto and Zuko also focused on Cain as they were curious about how the young man would handle the Dark factions. Even if all the Dark factions were to ally, they could not face the Deus Behemoth Empire and would be easily overrun. However, their power lay in their discretion and secrecy, acting in the shadows. Going after them in the open was impossible, but maneuvering around the underworld was also extremely complicated. Oron was seeing all that, and he could not believe that they were discussing allowing Cain to eat him, but none bothered with him. Cain showed a small smile as he saw the intrigue in the trio.
First of all, I will not be on the battlefield or terrain, and instead act as a center of information and logistics. I will extract the knowledge of prisoners' minds, and then guide warriors across the Empire in the search and destruction of the dark factions. I will remain in this dimension, and we will use the upper level of the dungeon as a detention center and headquarters. How I will do all that is up to me, but for the manpower, I will need control over a vast army. I need to have at least 10 Titans, 50 Middle Divine Ascension Masters, 500 Early Divine Ascension Masters, 5,000 Apotheosis Realm Masters, and 1 million Wave Kings. That is not all, as I will need Rune Masters capable of generating teleportation formations to connect this place and key areas across the Empire.
Kabuto and Zuko were stunned as they heard the requirements Cain put forth for the force he wanted to command. There was no duke or even patriarch in the Deus Behemoth Empire that could amass such force, and the only army capable of that might was the Imperial Army under the control of the Emperor. Eon's eyes narrowed as he heard Cain's words. The young man was asking for control over nearly half of the Imperial Army, something ridiculous for anyone other than the Emperor to have, yet he promised an equally stunning reward. Eliminating the dark factions would not only erase a plague that assaulted the Deus Behemoth Empire, allowing those willing to side with the Empire to shine brightly, but would also permit them to decommission immense fortunes of criminals, which they could use to raise greater powerhouses.
How certain are you in your success, and what percentage of the dark faction will you be able to eradicate?
Cain showed a smile full of confidence as he heard that.
Eradicating every single dark faction is impossible, since I am not an omnipotent entity, but I am certain we can erode over 90% of them if I am handed the forces I require.
Ian stared at Cain for a moment, and a sharp light appeared in his eyes as he slowly nodded.
I accept your deal, and you have the right to keep Auron and use him as you please. The information about the troops will reach your AI chip within the day, and your army will be ready in 10 days. You will have total control over them, as well as unrestricted access to our military and intelligence network. The Rune Masters will be ready to act on your word, and will form the teleportation formation wherever you desire. However, they will be guarded by members of the Volcano clan, and only they can trigger them.
Ian made a pause at this point, allowing Cain to understand the level of power he would gain. Cain will have absolute and direct control over the army, with no one to supervise him, and will have the authority to build his teleportation formation wherever he desires, allowing this one to connect to the Bahamut sector. As for the clause on the teleportation formations, that was understandable. After all, an enemy force could use them to teleport directly into the sector where the capital was located. There was no doubt they would be destroyed once this mission ended, as it was militarily unwise to keep them. While teleportation formations were useful and comfortable, they were also dangerous. Imagine what would have happened if the organization had formations that connected directly to the collapsing lightning sector. That would have made the war much harder for the collapsing Lightning King. Cain understood all the power he would be getting and waited silently for the next part as Ian had not finished.
If you fail to deliver, then you will be indebted not to me, but to the Deus Behemoth Empire. Do you still want to carry on?
Being indebted to Ian and indebted to the Deus Behemoth Empire were very different things, and Cain knew it. However, the red light in his eyes was sharp as he stared directly at the Emperor and nodded. After that, Ian gave one final glance at Auron, whose eyes were full of despair, but did not say a word and jumped back into the teleportation formation, leaving Kabuto and Zuko behind. He was giving the trio a chance in private. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 599, The Imperial Army's Arrival.
Brat, do you really think you can do all that without help? We could move in the darkness to help you with your missions.
Lord Zanguines and Lord Kabuto immediately spoke, their eyes full of concern. Cain had promised a goal that seemed impossible to achieve in their minds. Even if the young man was talented beyond reason, there was a limit to what he could do. Just the required computational skills and logistic mind to fulfill the mission was something the duo did not believe a living being could possess. Cain just smiled as he saw the concern in the patriarchs' faces. He was not worried about the mission as the AI chip module was more than capable of carrying on the weight of the logistics center for such an army.
I will be fine, there is no need to worry, but I will contact you in case of a problem.
Lord Zanguines and Lord Cabuto saw the confidence and serenity in Kane's face and could only sigh and accept the young man's words. Without further delay, they said farewell to Kane and left through the teleportation formation.
We are finally alone.
Kane was looking at the teleportation formation as he spoke those words, making Oron tremble due to the sheer terror.
Lo Lihuth Manju, TK, Ilmi.
Oron's rage was able to overcome his fear, and he shouted with rage and loathing despite the pain of speaking with his throat broken. Kane turned around and shook his head. Even at the gates of death, the predominant feeling in the man's heart was disgust and xenophobia. Not wanting to hear more from the man, he struck him on the back of the head, knocking him out. After that, Kane adopted a meditative position in front of Oron and placed his hand over his head. He planned to use the concept of gluttony to devour Oron's vitality and energy, using it to reinforce his body and energy pools. That way, he would train his gluttony concept and improve his cultivation base. Kane wanted to keep improving his mastery of the gluttony concept. While he could currently consume the memories of an early divine ascension master and should be able to do the same with the one in the Soul King's soul force, he was not content with just that.
Gluttony's eye should be able to devour more than just raw information. If I improve my mastery over the concept of gluttony, I should be able to assimilate emotions, intent, and insights inside the soul force and ego.
Although some might consider emotions and insight useless, that could not be further from the truth. Emotions, insight, and intents were the core behind Saint techniques, and without them, they were useless. Kane wanted to obtain every single detail from the Soul King's experiences, including his skills and insights into Saint cultivation techniques and laws. But for that, he needed to improve his gluttony concept to a much higher level. He had already got a great level of insight and intent from the gluttony concept upon perceiving the nature of the sky fiend flame, but practice was also needed. Luckily, he had an immense amount of energy and vitality in front of him, and soon smaller sources of fuel would arrive for him to train. 10 days after Ian had left the Umbra clan's secret dungeon and returned to Amazon to continue establishing order after the upheaval, a massive force appeared in the sky of the incinerated mountain range. The massive army had over 1 million Deus behemoths, all of them able to stand in the sky thanks to the immense amount of energy inside their bodies. There was none beneath the Wave King rank. Of course, numbers in ether had a finite effect as there were life forms capable of unleashing the power of H-bombs with a single strike. Yet, there were 10 such entities at the head of this massive military force. Eon had fulfilled his words and sent over 50% of the Imperial army to the incinerated mountain range. The mission was simple: to obey every command handed by the Godslayer human, Kane Lorifa. Despite their power, the people in this military force grew in the army, so they knew discipline. Since the Emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire commanded them to follow the humans' directives, they would do so. Still, many of the Titans could not help but look at each other with inquisitive gazes, as they were surprised by the order and curious about the nature of their new commanding officer. The name Kane Lorifa had spread across the Deus Behemoth Empire during the last years. The young man arrived on the Hyperion continent shortly before the Great Cataclysm and saved millions from the oceanic wave beast hordes. After that, he nearly destroyed the underworld of the Colossus sector before traveling to the Bahamut sector. There he immediately reignited his relationship with the Zanguines clan, to the point he was able to establish a deep relationship with Zuko Zanguines, the Patriarch. Shortly after that, he participated in the Solis clan tournament, and not only did he win, but he also became Lord Cabuto's foster son and the clan's son avatar. After that, news about him began to die down as he entered the astral bloodline realm, and just as people were starting to forget the name of Kane Lorifa, he emerged from the realm and uncovered the relationship between the Soul King and the Umbra clan. There were even tales of him crippling a peak early Divine Ascension Master from the Umbra clan with 2 attacks. Although many considered that to be too surreal, there were dozens of witnesses to that clash. Kane Lorifa's name had already become a legend among the people of the Deus Behemoth Empire, and even the Titans from the Imperial army could not help but wonder about the character of such a man.
Gigant, you have met the young man and spent some time with him. Is there anything you can tell us about him?
A Deus behemoth that resembled a mighty humanoid golden eagle with an imposing aura spoke to a one-eyed Titan to his right. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 600, Scarlet Inquisition Force I. Gigant, the Duke whom Cain met in the Colossus sector, turned toward the Titan with golden eagle features as he heard the question. Soon, all other Titans and Divine Ascension Masters turned toward him with inquisitive gazes. Although Gigant was a reserved person and did not like to talk about others, the truth was that all that happened around Cain had also come as a shock to him. Since they would be working under the young man, it would help the Titans to have an idea about Cain's nature, so in the end, Gigant chose to speak.
In all fairness, I don't know the son Avatar too much, as the truth was that he never truly opened up to me. However, I can say he is a very pragmatic and straightforward individual, and any form of flattering will be useless. If anything, he would only look down on you. For a man like that, the only thing that matters is results. That is all I can say.
A solemn expression appeared on the faces of the Titans as they heard those words, and it was clear they would be working for someone who would not tolerate any form of mistake or insubordination. Although following someone like that was strenuous, it also meant that person would make sure everybody did their part, something very important in a mission that involved over 1 million soldiers. Suddenly, the eyes of the Titans narrowed as they turned toward the teleportation formation on the ground of the empty dungeon. A figure appeared, and the next second, this one rose to the sky like a comet, immediately standing higher than the entire army. As soon as Cain appeared, the more than 1 million warriors focused on him. For anyone else, it would generate immense pressure, as not only was that military force tempered in the battlefield and with an overwhelming slaughter aura, but it contained figures at the peak of ether. Yet the only thing every single one of the soldiers, from the youngest Wave King to the mightiest Titans, saw were eyes glowing with a red light full of absolute and complete resolution without a single shred of doubt or hesitation. Cain was a master of order, and there was a sense of complete and absolute control emanating from the bottom of his soul. There were a lot of things a good leader needed, but the most important one was the ability to make the hard choice without hesitation. Clearly, the young man in front of them was able to carry that responsibility. Silence reigned for a moment as the soldiers stared at Cain, but it did not last long as a sharp light appeared in the 10 Titans. Every single one of those monsters capable of shattering the earth clasped their hands and performed a solemn nod.
We salute Army Commander Cain Lorifer.
All 10 Titans spoke in unison, making the sky tremble, but that was just the start. After they finished, it was time for the Divine Ascension Masters.
We salute Army Commander Cain Lorifer.
The Divine Ascension Masters also clasped their hands, but their position in the army was lower than the Titans, so they performed a deep bow toward Cain's figure.
We salute Army Commander Cain Lorifer.
Then came the time for the Deus Behemoth's Apotheosis Masters and Wave Kings. While their power was much lower than the Divine Ascension Masters, the combined might of their voice was so intense that it generated a massive shock wave that spread into the distance, making the ground tremble and trees wave. They kneeled in the sky and would only rise once their commanding officer allowed it. If it wasn't for Cain being a master of order, even he would have a hard time maintaining his calmness being in control of such an overwhelming military force. He did not make the soldiers wait for long as he raised his hand, allowing them to adopt relaxed positions. Before saying a single word, Cain's eyes grew sharp, and an invisible electromagnetic force field emerged from his mind. That was none other than the pseudo-multidimensional scan force field that carried the power of the sub-quantum hacking tool. The power of the AI chip module was so subtle that even the Titans barely perceived it. Yet, soon everybody noticed something had changed as the computer rings in their hands began to glow. That happened to every single computer ring in each of over 1 million soldiers. The 10 Titans immediately turned to Cain with inquisitive gazes. Even if he was their commanding officer, their computer ring was private, and having it hacked like that was not something they were too happy about. Kane noticed their reaction, but he stood straight as he focused on the army.
I have connected your computer rings to my AI chip. You must keep your computer rings active at all times, and that includes their voice and video recording functions.
Shock appeared in the eyes of the soldiers as Kane not only accessed their computer rings, but also activated their recording functions, meaning that from now on the young man would hear and see all they did. Although watching 1 million people at the same time should be impossible, it was still something that violated their privacy. It was at this point that one of the Titans, a woman with a beautiful face and soft black fur over her arms and legs, took a step forward and spoke.
Army Commander, permission to speak freely.
Kane stared at the woman. He had her file, and her name was Amalia, the founder and patriarch of the Shadow Ferret clan. She was raised in the military and managed to become a Titan due to her great power and hard work. Despite her strength being higher than that of Kane and her discomfort with the lack of privacy, she maintained military etiquette, which made the young Godslayer human have a favorable impression of her.
Go ahead, General Amalia.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates.